hours. The Animal Hoarders Marathon began at 9 this morning as victims were preparing for a full day before hearing the fateful sound of the show's opening credits. Almost instantly, thousands were pinned to their couches by a story of a heavyset homosexual living with his partner, his toothless sister, and 31 chihuahuas. Rescue workers rushed to free as many victims as they could.
The rope secure? Rope secure. We're gonna get you out of here. Just hold on a second, ma'am.
Wait, I think the next one is about monkeys.
Ready? Ready! Pull!
No, wait. Can I just see what happens with the feral cat?
In other parts of the country, rescue workers enlisted volunteers who had already seen the episodes to spoil them for the victims.
Oh, yeah, this one. This is about the lady living with the dogs in the trailer. She doesn't even get evicted in the end.
This is the Onion News Network.
Don't miss a moment of Free Talk Live. Get our archives daily via our podcast at feeds.freetalklive.com. Free Talk Live.
What's up, all of our liberty-loving friends? This is another fantastic episode of Liberty at Night with Nate and Charlie on the Free Talk Live network. And Free Talk Live is brought to you by Dash Digital Cash with fees of less than a penny per transaction. Dash is made for spending. Dash is one of the oldest cryptocurrencies, and they are widely available on exchanges, including the decentralized Mayor protocol and in multi-crypto wallets. Thanks to the Dash DAO for sending us 32 Dash per month for this sponsorship. It's easy to get and use Dash. You can learn more at dash.org. That's dash.org. And this, once again, Liberty at Night on the Free Talk Live network. I guess, first off, I have to say I was super wrong about the election. For our listeners, I want to get this out of the way. I said Kamala was going to win in a landslide. Now, if I can give you some excuses real quick.
Okay, let's hear it.
The one thing I can say that I said several times was that this election would not be close, that all of the polls saying it was essentially 50-50 meant that it was going to be off by at least the margin of error or more in one direction or the other. And the direction I thought it was going to be off by the margin of error was towards Kamala Harris.
And what did I think?
You thought it was going to be Trump. We made a bet. I owe you $100. We know that.
Morning, fellas. Fine morning, isn't it?
And I did say that I would eat my words.
Yeah. I've done that once before on the show.
You did. So here are my words. Kamala will win in a landslide. That's my words right there on a little scrap.
Oh, don't bring it out of the camera. Keep it in camera view so people don't think you're in any kind of
It's right here.
tomfoolery here.
I said, you my words. Here are my words. Kamala will win in a landslide.
This is what the entire Fed Haters Club is looking for here.
I just want to get it out of the way just to begin.
There it is.
I'm just going to work on that. And, it's a sweeter taste than I thought it would be.
And it's not so often.
It feels good.
It's not very often that Nate and I disagree. And when we do disagree, it's not very often that I actually come out ahead. Mm-hmm. Unless we're playing poker, then my record against Nate is, it's unbelievable. It's unprecedented, honestly. Between two people having a record in poker.
Gone. Just swallowed it.
Nice.
Gone.
Thank you for that. Thank you for holding true to your word.
Did it.
Not true to your principles because you voted for Trump, but thank you for holding true to your word on at least that. And he washes it down.
We're going to cover exactly what happened, all the information that we have, where everything stands right now. We'll play the first 30 seconds of Trump coming out and giving his speech.
Thank you very much. Wow. Thank you all very much. This is great. These are our friends. We have thousands of friends in this incredible movement. This was a movement like nobody's ever seen before. And frankly, this was, I believe, the greatest political movement of all time. There's never been anything like this in this country and maybe beyond. And now it's going to reach a new level of importance because we're going to help our country heal. We're going to help our country heal. We have a country that needs help, and it needs help very badly. We're going to fix our borders. We're going to fix everything about our country. And We made history for a reason tonight, and the reason is going to be just that. We overcame obstacles that nobody thought possible, and it is now clear that we've achieved the most incredible political thing. Look what happened. Is this crazy?
On that note, I think if it would have been a narrow electoral college win for Trump and a popular vote victory for Kamala, then we may have seen some of that 14th Amendment stuff, put him in prison, stuff like that. But with this overwhelming victory, this landslide victory that we just saw,
probably winning the popular vote,
including, yeah, we I guess we're still waiting on votes from California. We'll talk about that. They're not all in, and there's a lot of people there, unfortunately. So we'll see what the popular vote ends up being, but it looks like he's going to win the popular vote. And so I don't think we'll see the shenanigans. Now, I've been known to be wrong, like over the last 3 months. Okay. It's happened before. Yeah. It's happened. By the way, did you know you can't spell triumph without Trump?
Well, how about that?
I just noticed that because I realized how similar those two words were. Trump triumphs. How about that? I never noticed that. Washington Post becomes second president to win non-consecutive terms. First felon. That's good. First felon. That's good. Factually accurate. Yeah. Factually accurate, I guess.
I think the fact that they made him a felon actually helped. We talked about this.
Yeah.
We talked about the fact that they were going after him. And you see how they're going after Elon Musk and everybody else too. That it motivates the base even more. It motivates people like me and Nate to actually go vote for someone that they're trying to put in prison for no reason whatsoever. And it's almost everything against him has been a lie, a hoax. It's been manipulative. It's gaslighting. And you're just like, America sent a big middle finger yesterday to say, we're not going to stand for that.
I'll show you who sent the middle fingers here pretty soon. New York Times says Trump storms back. Stunning return to power after dark and defiant campaign. His win opens an era of uncertainty for the nation.
Ooh.
That's scary for sure. By the way, Nate in the group said I'm fully leaning into the MAGA train. Don't worry. I've got some black pills for you. I have them prepared, and we will talk about those. Let's see. CNN Trump retakes power. This is likely what the electoral map will end up looking like. Pretty crazy. 312 to people love. You just love looking at the maps, and you hover over it, and you see what the votes are and stuff like that. And so we'll see what the maps are looking like. Now, this is interesting. This is Trump. This is the 2020 polling miss adjustment that we've been talking about. This is not the half. This is the full miss. Okay. And this is looking like it could be pretty close. What we have talked about several times is that if the polls were off like they were in 2020, then Trump was going to win in a landslide. And I can pull up several tweets where I've tweeted that. If the polls are off like they were in 2020, Trump wins in a landslide. Anyone can do that calculation. And it looks like that was the case. 51% of the popular vote right now to 47.4. And that's a pretty big deal. Now, I could get a little bit of the black pill out of the way for you real quick. Now, Chase Oliver got 560,000 votes-ish. He got 30,000 less votes than the RFK. I'm not hating on Chase or anything. That's not the point of this. My black pill is there were 1.8 million votes for Libertarian in 2020, Joe Jorgensen. And so there's 1.2 million fewer votes for the Libertarian this time around. Right now, Trump has the popular vote by 5 million votes. And so if you're Trump right now, if he won this election and he won it by the margin of the amount of fewer libertarians that voted for the Libertarian candidate, then I think he has a clear sign in his mind that the Libertarians helped push him over the threshold.
Let me throw a wrench in that real quick, though. What about and I haven't looked at it, but what about the key swing states like Pennsylvania?
I looked at Pennsylvania. Chase got 40,000 less votes than Joe Jorgensen did, and the spread is much bigger than that. It's a lot bigger than that. And so even libertarians, if you assume that everyone who didn't vote for Chase that voted for Joe voted for Trump and not for Kamala or something because they were too scared of Trump or whatever, it still doesn't eat into the margin of victory very much in a state like Pennsylvania. We can dig deeper into all the numbers on that. I didn't have a lot of time to look into that. But so what libertarians have to potentially worry about, and what we have to do, like what we always do, is continue to criticize people who are in power. Now, we can have the people that we would prefer to be in power over the other one, whichever lesser of two evils there is. But we're still going to call out every single thing that we see that Trump does that is not libertarian, that doesn't advance liberty, actually authoritarian in the eyes of libertarians and people who care about individual liberty. And we will continue to do that. My worry with this big of a win for him for libertarians is that he will see this libertarian vote as inconsequential to him winning the election. And actually what he found is he got such a popular mandate, such a mandate from the American people, that he doesn't even need to worry about the libertarians next time around. The only reason you want to follow up on your promises is because Republicans would want to try and get the libertarians next time around too. Because if he doesn't follow through on any of them, well, the next time they make promises, probably, no one's gonna believe it any more than they did right now, for sure. I still hope all these things are going to happen, but it was pushing back against the lies, the gaslighting, and all of that I am happy about right now. The
woke mind virus.
The woke mind virus seems like it got pushed back against, and that's good. That's a good thing. You got a guy that they were calling Hitler who got 34 convictions. I mean, you can call him a felon and all that, but anyone can be a felon if they decide to go after you.
Yeah.
I'm a potential felon in the making right now. If they spend some time going after me, I guarantee you.
So is Kamala.
So, yeah, Kamala.
So is Biden.
Yes, absolutely.
Now, here's a potential white pill for you. Is it possible that Trump could try to put an end to this going after your political opponents by pardoning Hunter Biden?
Well, I think... listen, if I'm Joe Biden, I pardon Hunter Biden today sometime. But if he doesn't... You're telling me if your son was potentially about to go to prison and you got a month or two left in office, yeah, I'd pardon my son for sure. So
what if that potentially leaves a blemish, on his record?
Yeah, I think Biden's feeling pretty good today.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm not sure he's too worried about that.
If he knows where he's at.
Yeah. Yes.
No, I'm just saying, is there a possibility that it now rests on Trump's shoulders to put his ego to the side, which I don't know will happen. I don't have a very high hope that Trump is able to set his ego to the side. The only thing that would give me hope in that is the fact that he was almost assassinated and then wasn't. And the way he talks about that is like, oh, he doesn't say it like, oh, I'm such a badass, they shot me and I'm still alive. He literally said last night, God saved my life so I could save the country. Now, of course, there's a little ego in that.
Yeah.
But he talks about it in an essence of realizing that potentially God, or at least a higher power or something, spared his life. And so I'm wondering, is there a possibility that he could set his ego to the side and try to tamp down the going after...
The answer is yes, because he didn't go after Hillary after he got elected the first time. And they had talked about that several times. So the answer to the long story short is yes. He could decide to not go after any of these people.
But what could he do to actually move the needle? Because even though he didn't go after Hillary, there still was a witch hunt from 2016 to 2020. And you could even argue now, could be, according to the information that we know now, there could have been an actual staged coup by Fauci funding the Wuhan lab virus that broke out coronavirus that essentially took Trump down.
Well, I'd be pumped to
in
see if they're
2020.
going to go with some real investigations into all of that stuff, by the way. I think that's going to be some real interesting information we're going to get. I wanted to answer Jake's question in the group because I think it's an easy question for me to answer, and I think I've already answered it several times. 2028, let's say it's Vance versus AOC, and Dave Smith is the Libertarian candidate.
That's easy.
Who's Dave Smith?
Dave Smith.
There's no question.
Yeah.
And I've already stated several times I've stated several times that I didn't vote Libertarian this time because I didn't have someone that I could vote for.
The problem
I will vote my principles if the person aligns with my principles. If I'm going to make a non-principled vote, then I'm going to make a strategic vote.
Here's the biggest problem with Chase, in my estimation, at least for me personally, is that the biggest reason why Chase didn't align with my values is because he perpetuates the lie of the whole identity crisis transgender issue. The problem is we're lying to these people, saying that their feelings trump their biology, or we've changed the words into gender affirming care when it's the opposite. It's actually gender changing care. And the fact that we should give people chemicals...
Well, it's conversion therapy.
It's conversion therapy. And we should give people chemicals or allow people to take chemicals that can alter their body when they can't consent, when they're a child. That is... It goes along with the lies and the gaslighting and the manipulation that I think ultimately needs to be fought for. And you know what actually really changed my mind is when I attended Jordan Peterson in Nashville. This was back in April. What really got me thinking on this was when Jordan Peterson talked about if they're able to get you to swallow the lie that boys can be girls and girls can be boys, if they can get you to swallow that lie, then they can get you to swallow any lie.
Mm-hmm.
And we have to, as a culture and a society, fight back against those things. It's just not, it's a fundamental lie.
Mm-hmm.
That has to, and the problem for me was, because I voted Libertarian in the last two elections. I did not, obviously, in this election, because I didn't like Trump or Hillary, and I didn't like Trump or Biden. So I voted Libertarian. The problem in this election is that the Libertarian candidate was not viable. He wasn't aligned against part of the lie. That's one of the biggest, not only including the dangers to actual women that you see with men taking over sports and men going in locker rooms and things of that nature. I think Riley Green has an incredible story when she talks about Riley Gaines on has an incredible story about the swim team. And there's no way I could find it within myself to go along with that. So honestly, I voted in my principles, the lesser of three evils.
Yeah.
It was the lesser of three.
So let's we'll continue our postmortem here on the election and the postmortem on Kamala Harris. I wanted to show you these are states that Trump was expected to win narrowly. It's pretty funny. Florida plus 13, Texas plus 14, Iowa. Remember, Kamala was gonna win Iowa by 3 points in that last gold standard poll that we got, showing Kamala up. Well, he ended up winning that by 13. Every single swing state currently right now, Arizona plus 5, Georgia plus 2, Michigan plus 1.6, Nevada plus 5, North Carolina plus 3, Pennsylvania plus 2, and Wisconsin currently plus 0.88. And I wanted to tell you where I first started to see, and this kind of goes down to, I think this, I'd said several times I thought Kamala was going to win in a landslide. And when we first started getting results and Florida reported,
you did change
immediately.
Yeah. You were like, whoa.
As soon as I saw Florida, because they report really fast, I was like, okay, this is not going how I was predicting it was going to go. And it was, first off, Trump was up 12 or 13 points in Florida, where he won 6 points, or less than. He was up by 6 in the polls. I think he won by 3 points something in 2020. But Miami-Dade County, he won by 11%. Okay? Miami-Dade County, it's like 65% Hispanic. And he won it by 11%. And so all the Puerto Rico immigrants, rapists, and murderers, like all that, I saw when I
Mass
saw that
deportation.
When I saw that, I was like, that didn't stick. That did not stick. And so if you start canceling out that stuff, what else didn't stick? And just to show you, Miami-Dade County in Florida, I know it's not considered like a bellwether county or whatever they call it, but he wins it by 11. And Biden won it by what, 7.3 in 2020. Trump flips that to plus 11. It's an 18-point swing in that election. And so once I saw that,
is that with similar vote totals?
It was similar.
It's like
it was
1.1 million,
1.14 million there, and we have
almost 1.1 million.
Yeah, 1.1. Don't worry, we will talk about the vote totals if we get to it. If we get to it. All right, so check this out. I know it's not as cool as going through the map, but I wanted to show you how big of a difference this was. In 2020...
Yeah, I guess for those that didn't tune in last night, you have no idea what we're talking about. But arrows seem to be the most important election indicator that we have found so far.
Look at these swings. Pennsylvania, Biden won it by 1.2. Trump won it by 2. So you got a swing of 3.2 in Pennsylvania. Georgia was won by Biden by 0.3. Trump won it by 2. North Carolina, Trump won it by 1.3. He won it by 3. Michigan, Trump lost it by 2.8. So far, right now, he's winning it by 1.7. So that's a 4.5% swing. Wisconsin, he lost it by 0.6. He's winning it by 1 right now. Arizona, he lost it by 0.4. He's currently up by 5 right now. Nevada, he lost it by 2.4, and he's currently up by 5 right now. Those are massive swings from 2020 to 2024.
One thing that's interesting, like Arizona and Nevada, those two states still voted for the abortion rights.
They did.
Memo.
I forgot to bring in all of the state stuff.
However,
that's what I forgot.
Overwhelmingly voted for Trump. And I think the story there is that they didn't believe the lie that women were going to lose their abortion rights. Even though I still think, obviously, abortion's wrong. They understood that it's now a state issue, and that they're able to, since it was on the ballot, they're able to cast their vote in 2 different directions to say, hey, I still want the right to an abortion, or at least change the laws a little bit so that we feel more comfortable to get pregnant or do whatever they want, and then still vote for Trump.
Yeah. While we're on this topic,
now that didn't happen in Florida, but that happened in Missouri, Arizona, and Nevada, at least that I know of.
Of the people who thinks abortion should be legal, Trump still won 28% of those people. And so those, even though abortion was kind of a big issue, 14% of people said that it was their most important issue. Of the 14% of people who said abortion was their most important issue, 24% of them voted for Trump. And of the 66% of people who said abortion should be legal, 28% of them still voted for Trump. And so that means some of those people just cared more about the economy and foreign policy and stuff like that, or they just didn't believe the lie that it was going to be outlawed, that they actually understood that it had been taken to the states and that their states could vote, and that Trump said he wasn't going to sign a national abortion ban, and that they believed that. They didn't just believe the repeated lies on all of this. We'll get back to those things real quick.
Some of you have wanted to support Free Talk Live's mission on a monthly basis, but don't want to support Patreon. Now we have an alternative that also helps our premier streaming platform, Odyssey. Visit video.freetalklive.com and click join at the top of the channel. You can subscribe for $5 per month, and unlike other subscription services, Odyssey adds their processing fee on top, so it'll cost a little over $5 per month, but Free Talk Live will receive the entire amount you pledged. Higher donation tiers are available if you're feeling so inspired. You'll get a special membership badge that's visible in the Odyssey chat room, and if we get enough supporters, we may enable members-only chat. This new subscription method is a great way to decentralize our direct listener support away from just Patreon and also support a libertarian-run business, Odyssey. Please visit video.freetalklive.com and click join to subscribe to our Odyssey channel and help support spreading our message around the planet. Visit video.freetalklive.com and click join today.
From Feature Story News in Washington, I'm Benji Haya. The United States insists Israel is not violating American law over the level of aid entering Gaza after outgoing President Joe Biden threatened to withhold some military support due to the humanitarian situation in the war-torn Palestinian territory. Israel has since approved a series of measures to boost the amount of aid flowing into the Gaza Strip, as Giles Gibson reports from Tel Aviv.
Among the measures approved by Israel's Security Cabinet are the expansion of a humanitarian zone in the south of Gaza, as well as an increase in the numbers of aid trucks being allowed to flow into the enclave. However, a group of international aid agencies, which includes Save the Children and Oxfam, has said that the Israeli government has not met the criteria set out by the US government last month. The Biden administration told Israel that it had 30 days to improve the humanitarian situation in Gaza or risk losing some security assistance.
President Biden met Israeli counterpart Isaac Herzog at the White House today, where he reaffirmed America's ironclad support for its Middle East ally. US President-elect Donald Trump has nominated former Governor Mike Huckabee for the role of ambassador to Israel and appointed Congressman Mike Waltz as his national security advisor. He's also considering Senator Marco Rubio as his Secretary of State. Nick Harper's in Washington.
Trump is lining up his loyalists for top jobs. Senator Marco Rubio has foreign policy experience. He's currently serving as vice chair of the Senate Intelligence Committee and sitting on the Foreign Relations Committee. And if South Dakota Governor Kristi Noem becomes Homeland Security Secretary, she would work with Tom Homan, the new border czar, to secure the US-Mexico border and enforce the mass deportation of illegal immigrants.
The world is on fire. That's the warning from the European Commissioner's pick to be the EU's next foreign affairs chief. Here's Will Denzilo in Brussels.
Addressing members of the European Parliament, Kaja Kallas said that if Washington's worried about China, it should also be worried about the response to Russia against Ukraine. The comments came in the wake of Donald Trump's election win and concerns in Europe that he'll focus his attention on China and away from Ukraine.
Another potential win down the line for Donald Trump, a judge delaying a key ruling on whether to set aside his criminal conviction. Sally Patterson's in New York with the details.
Donald Trump is still slated to be sentenced in his hush money trial at the end of this month. The former president was found guilty on 34 felony counts. That was for covering up payments made to porn star Stormy Daniels during the 2016 presidential election. The judge in this case now says he'll take another week to decide whether to throw out the case altogether. Trump's team says the case should be dismissed following a Supreme Court ruling on presidential immunity.
From bureaus worldwide, this is FSN.
We're still not sure why you'd want to watch, but our video feed is streaming nightly for free at cam.freetalklive.com.
It's Liberty Night with Nate and Charlie on the Free Talk Live network, and we're going to continue going through some of our post-election 2024 coverage. I want to go through what I think are some of the craziest things. Now, red states. He increased margins like across the board everywhere. It's just wild. Iowa up 8.2 in 2020, up 13 this year. Florida 3.3 in 2020, 13 2024. Texas, he won by 5.6 in 2020, 14 this year. Tennessee 23.3 in 2020, he won it by 30 this year, even though we did get that stupid transit tax passed in Davidson County, gosh dang it. Kentucky won it by 26 and he ended up winning by 31 this year. Now the craziest part, not the red states, but the blue states. These green bars up here, that's the swing in Trump's direction in the blue states, just so you know what this chart is showing you. So he lost New York by 23 in 2020. He lost it by losing so far by 11.
Which is still a lot.
Still a lot, but that is a 12-point swing from one election to the next. And you go to some specific counties and areas in New York, and you see why he was doing events in New York and New Jersey. And it's kind of what we thought. Like, he was trying to pile on the popular vote. And he wanted to go to those people and say, hey, you can vote for me, even though we're probably going to lose the state. It's still good to go vote for me. And that's a pretty good idea there. 15.8 he lost New Jersey by. This is a crazy one. 15.8 in 2020. He lost it by 5.
Wow. Could have been a potential swing state.
I know. That's it. So when you lose it by 5, like, you are getting into, this is winnable territory.
Yeah.
You know? Virginia, he lost by 10 in 2020, ended up losing by 5. That's one that we thought was actually going to be close and could potentially flip, but ended up going the other way. Minnesota, the home state of the governor who was running as vice president.
Which, by the way, we found out his life was just full of lies.
Yeah, just lies.
Again, it's the same theme of what America voted against. Is the fact that we didn't want some fake person in there with stolen valor. I mean, the guy was an absolute nut job. Very poor decision by Kamala to pick him as, I think, the VP. I think he was exposed.
So Biden won Minnesota by 7.1. So far, she's only winning Minnesota by 4 with Minnesota's governor on her ticket. Okay. California, Trump lost by, now we don't have as big of a percentage of votes in California yet. I have to check and see what that's at. Trump lost by 29.2 in 2020, lost by 17 as of the last count. Okay. Same Oregon, and then our home state of Illinois. Pretty wild. Biden won it by 17 points, and Trump lost it by 8 to Kamala. These numbers in the blue states, if you're a Democrat, you are freaking terrified right now.
Now go back to the previous important issues survey that you just had up there. So I want to point out something where I think a huge disparity is. If you look at abortion and immigration, they're pretty closely aligned as the most important issue, 14%, 11%. And Trump won that handedly, I think, when you boil that down, because Harris won the abortion 76-24, but the immigration, which is almost as important as abortion in this election, Trump won almost 90%.
Yeah, I think the big thing
and
here,
the economy,
where I, what led to me being really wrong, where I thought it was going to be Kamala in a landslide, was only 14. Now this is an exit poll. Doesn't have to mean that it's super accurate or whatever. But out of almost 23,000 respondents here, we have 14% of them said that abortion was their most important issue. And that's another one where early in the night, then I saw the number of 14% being shown on the news. And I was like, that's not good for Democrats because abortion is the issue that Kamala ran on. Everything, freedom, when they said the word libertarian or whatever it was, all the freedom was all about the freedom for abortion. And so when only 14% of the people said that abortion was their most important issue, that's why you end up with this, that she had nothing else except for Trump is bad.
It seemed like their best lie here was democracy.
Mm-hmm.
That was the left's best lie, is that Trump would destroy democracy, because that ended up being the number one issue according to these exit pollers.
Now that's for people that say democracy was their most important issue. And so she gets that one, and that's 35% of people. But check this out. 73% of people said that they agreed that democracy is threatened in the US. Well, that split 49-49 for Trump and Harris. Meaning that, maybe the party that installed their own candidate and skipped over the democratic process for their primary is not the biggest protector of democracy. And just to be clear, like what Jake said here in the group, democracy should be threatened. Democracy sucks. And of course, we're talking about majoritarian democracy, where 50.1% of the people control the other 49.9. Of course, there's two ways of talking about democracy. There's that one. And then there's the people having a vote and control and a say in how their government is
and
run.
The rhetoric that the left was running with, that Trump is going to destroy democracy.
That democracy.
Yes.
The entire idea, Oprah Winfrey got out there and said that this is the last election. Okay. Now I look forward to going back to that clip in 2028 when we have an election. Okay. But that's another. So the top thing I have right here, and maybe it's a white pill because it's White Pill Wednesday. Doesn't have to be about Trump or whatever. This all goes back to the rhetoric leading up to this election. That's why I feel good today. I'm worried as hell about stuff that Trump might do while he's in office.
To the live group's point, to be fair, Elon said that too.
He did. Yes. He did.
And obviously, in context, his classification was different because he said there would be elections, essentially, but the problem is that it's going to be California. Every state is going to turn to California because the Democrats plan on legalizing these 20 million plus illegal immigrants, and overwhelmingly they're going to vote Democratic, which means they're going to get rid of all the swing states.
But it's not overwhelmingly. Trump got 45% of the Hispanic vote.
Of legal Hispanic
Those people would be legal at that time. They'd have to legalize them, And so,
but do you think he would hold that 45% margin?
Well, I still think that if Republicans embraced immigration a little bit more, and it's a tricky situation because you want to secure.
Well, he did last night in a speech. I don't know if you heard this.
No, I didn't. I haven't heard. I've heard a little bit more than what we played.
Well, so he said that we're going to secure the border, and he said we're going to, remove a lot of people, but then he said we're going to let them back in. He said that. He said it several times. We're going to let them back in, and everybody was, he making a lot of noise, and then he finally said legally.
Yeah.
But he's like, we're going to get rid of them, but we're going to let them back in. We want people to come to our country. Then he goes, legally.
So this first CBS exit poll, this one, there's just these concerning things that I saw. Like immediately when stuff started coming in, I knew that I was wrong about my prediction that Kamala wanted a landslide. I still thought she might win. But most important, candidate quality. I saw this one early in the night. Has the ability to lead. And she's not going to win that one.
And here's the most telling factor of that is everyone could see her being a shapeshifter.
Mm-hmm.
No matter where
chameleon.
She was a chameleon. There was nothing of substance of her. No one could point to that person and be like, yeah, that's someone who hasn't changed. Mm-hmm. That's someone who's going to stick to their guns. That's someone we can count on, who has integrity, who isn't just going to change who they are because it depends on who's listening.
I just think that
she had 18 different voices and accents during all of her different appearances.
I mean, let's be clear. It's just because people hate women. But I think it's a good day for women because Kamala would have been the last female president. She would have screwed this up so bad. She would have set women back another 100 years. We might have repealed the 19th Amendment after her. So this is a good day for women.
Besides, I want you to think of this. Besides Ayn Rand, who would you think would be a good female president? I know your first choice would have been Ayn Rand if she was alive. So I'm trying to think who else would actually be a good female president in your estimation.
That is a great question.
Marjorie Taylor Greene?
God. Jo Jorgensen.
Angela McArdle?
Jo Jorgensen. You know why I say that? Because I voted for her in the last election.
The redheaded libertarian?
So she might be okay.
Josie?
She's pretty good at the Constitution. Angela would be good. Absolutely. Joe's first one that comes to mind because she's the only one I've ever voted for. There are some pretty decent.
What about the governor of South Dakota? What's her name?
Know.
Not Gretchen.
No. The dog killer?
I'm trying to think of any current, women in politics, prominent women in politics.
We're showing our true stripes right now.
That would be a good president. Look, there aren't many men that would be good presidents.
No, I mean, I can't immediately name a lot of men that I think would make a great president either.
I think, I have one, obvious choice would be Thomas Massey.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Because he's consistently been, I think he would be the best option for president of anybody currently in government.
This is an interesting one.
So Ayn Rand would be your number one choice, probably.
Someone like that.
Okay.
But Ayn Rand said that women shouldn't be president. And she said that any woman that women shouldn't want to be the president, that you wouldn't want to trust any woman that wants to be the president. That's Ayn Rand saying that. So yeah. I'm paraphrasing, but yeah. Democrats lost support among Latino voters. In 2020, they got 65%. 2024, they got 53%. Young voters. 2020.
Which is interesting.
Yeah, 2020, they got 60%. 24, they got 55%. And women.
Even though it's still men's fault.
Women with a woman running for president on a platform that just entirely, it was just abortion. That's all it was. If you can take one white pill, I honestly thought that abortion was going to win the election this year. And that is a gall-darn black pill if I ever heard one. That is a freaking negative for society and for humanity if abortion is going to win an election.
Mm-hmm.
And while it did win in several states, okay, people still did not let it really, it did not influence the national that much. Now, Florida did not go with their amendment.
Because they needed a superman. They needed 60%.
And
it still was...
Did it get over 50?
57.
Did it really?
It was only 3 points away from actually passing.
But most of the states...
Now, Arizona, Missouri, it was only a Democratic.
Mm-hmm.
It was democracy. Pure democracy.
Yeah. But I honestly thought that the fact that, I mean, Kamala's whole thing was abortion. When she talked about freedom, it was always about abortion. And if she would have won on that, that is really sad for people, for human beings, for humanity. And she got freaking hosed on it. And so regardless of what you think about libertarians voting for who and Trump not being this or being that, that's a good thing. That's a white pill, in my opinion.
What's the estimation 3 points for the women vote? Is that like losing 5 million votes, 6 million votes?
I don't know.
Something like that?
There's way less votes this year, so I don't know.
What would be...
I'm not sure.
What would be 3% of like 80 million?
I don't know.
Or even 50 million? You're looking at 1.5 million?
15. Yeah.
So let's say around 2 million. 2 million less women voted for a woman than they did for Biden, for a senile old white man.
Now, we do have, I don't have comparisons to 2020 here. White men overwhelmingly went for Trump. White women went for Trump by 5%. Black men, Kamala 78-20, black women 92-7. Latino men, Trump won those by 10 points. Latina women, Kamala won that by a hefty margin there.
Where's the Latinx category?
I don't see a Latinx over here. So that's interesting. Here's another cool thing I noticed. If you had an unfavorable view of Donald Trump, once again, this is from 23,000 respondents. If you had an unfavorable view of Donald Trump, Trump still won 9% of those people who had an unfavorable view of him. If you had an unfavorable view of Kamala Harris, she only won 5% of those people who had an unfavorable view of her. 8% of people said they had an unfavorable opinion of both candidates. Neither one of them. They didn't like either one of the candidates. Trump won 55% of those people.
23 points.
That's a pretty big margin. Okay, it looks like Harris probably got, she only got 32. Trump got 55. So of the ones who didn't vote for Trump, a bunch of them went for third-party candidates, more than likely, or they just didn't vote. Okay, so we made it through all those slides. We do have a couple things here. I thought this was a compelling video. This from CNN. This is not one of those freak out videos from CNN, but we've got this. After we watch this video, it's a 2-minute clip, and I thought it was a pretty good explanation. It's making its rounds right now.
This is a mandate. He's won the national popular vote for the first time for a Republican, for the first time since 2004. This is a big deal. This isn't backing into the office. This is a mandate to do what you said you were going to do. Get the economy working again for regular working class Americans, fix immigration, try to get crime under control, try to reduce the chaos in the world. This is a mandate from the American people to do that. I think I'm interpreting the results tonight as the revenge of just the regular old working class American, the anonymous American who has been crushed, insulted, condescended to. They're not garbage. They're not Nazis. They're just regular people who get up and go to work every day and are trying to make a better life for their kids, and they feel like they have been told to just shut up when they have complained about the things that are hurting them in their own lives. I also feel like this election, as we sit here and pour over this tonight, is something of an indictment of the political information complex. I mean, we've been sitting around here for the last couple of weeks, and the story that was portrayed was not true. I mean, we were told Puerto Rico was going to change the election. Liz Cheney, Nikki Haley voters, women lying to their husbands. Before that, it was Tim Walz and the camo hats. Night after night after night, we were told all these things and gimmicks were going to somehow push Harris over the line, and we were just ignoring the fundamentals. Inflation, people feeling like that they were barely able to tread water at best. That was the fundamentals of the election. And so I think that both parties should always look at the results of an election and figure out what went right and what went wrong. But I think for all of us who cover elections and talk about elections and do this on a day-to-day basis, we have to figure out how to understand, talk to, and listen to the half of the country that rose up tonight and said, we've had enough.
I agree with that. I think that's a good point for sure. Now, are they going to do that? I'm not sure if they're going to do that. Okay. The media, the CNNs, the MSNBCs, those kind of people, your NBC, CBS, all those people, they got a big middle finger last night because they have spent all of their time talking about some very specific things. Even if you go back before a few of the last hoaxes that we talk about, the economy is booming. It's perfect. It's the best economy you've ever seen.
Despite what you're feeling.
Record economy, record jobs, record everything. Everything's so good. Now,
then they went to Joe Biden's definitely running.
Yeah.
He's not dropping out.
Definitely going to be there.
He is cognizant. He's as sharp as we've ever seen.
He's cogent.
They all ran with the story when he posted that fake, Twitter post on Friday saying he's not giving in.
Mm-hmm.
He's not giving up. We're going to win. And then, Sunday the letter came out and they cooed him and installed Kamala, and then they all ran with it.
They lied to people for years about Biden. Like everyone knew that Biden was not there, that he was clearly showing signs of dementia. And what should have happened is that they should have had an actual Democratic primary where the guy who clearly wasn't here anymore said he wasn't going to seek re-election, but they wouldn't do that because they were afraid that they'd use the 25th Amendment against him. And then he'd have Kamala as the president. And then she'd screw everything up because she was so Dude, before they installed Kamala, I mean, a week before they installed Kamala, they were looking at Biden's poll numbers, and they were talking about how Kamala was dragging him down, and that it would be nice if he could pick a different vice president, but they wouldn't be able to do it, clearly. Wouldn't be able to do that, but that she was dragging Biden's numbers down.
Because she's a walk.
Mm-hmm.
She's a woman of color. There's no way you could remove her from the ticket.
And all of a sudden she comes in and it's just joy, and she's brat, and she's apparently brat plus joy equals cope, is what I can tell. But it was all these great things. And
and they ran with the story rather than being true journalists. Like the Democrats could easily fix this and win elections easily.
Yeah.
Because Trump is not a great candidate, okay? They could easily fix this. You quit with the blatant gaslighting and lying. You do some actual journalism, and you question people on your own side. You show some authenticity, and then overwhelmingly, I think a lot of people would have voted for a viable Democratic candidate over Trump.
When you said Trump is not a great candidate, my mind flashed back to the early 2000s when the rumor or the realization that George W. Bush might have smoked weed at one time or something like that was like a major political scandal that was going to take him down or something, let alone if some kind of affair would have come out or something like that.
I think to Jake's point, if they would have ran RFK, it would have been a landslide the other way. I don't know if he would have been the candidate, although I do think that RFK had a better chance of beating Trump.
I think that's very possible. Yeah.
I
think RFK joining Trump really helped a lot. I mean, he still got a lot of votes. RFK still got more votes than the Libertarian candidate, Chase Oliver, and he said, I'm not running, vote for Trump, and he still got more votes than the Libertarian.
He came out and said, don't vote for me.
So how many other people do you think RFK brought with him to Trump. That might have been the single biggest thing that Trump did, was being able to bring in RFK.
Yeah.
And so that's a pretty big deal. But
I think the other beauty of this, to me, the other white pill, is you see the ideology eating itself. We always talk about the snake eating its tail. This is because Kamala was a woman of color. They couldn't remove her from the ticket. Because she was the sitting vice president, they couldn't drum up another candidate. They failed themselves, right? By their own rhetoric and their own. They did some things where you're like, there's no way they would do that. Like, the fact that they, installed Kamala and circumvented the democratic process as being the party of pro-democracy by circumventing democracy. So they did things like that were shocking, that I think America was like, yeah, we see what you're doing. But on top of that, they couldn't go so far as to remove Kamala because she's a woman of color.
DEI lost this election.
I would say, yeah, that's part of it.
Like that kind of politics. I mean, the point you just made, that they knew Kamala sucked. They were literally talking about how and by they, I mean Democratic networks who were talking about why Trump was beating Biden so bad in the polls. Like that, it was bad. Trump was up by like 8 against Biden in a bunch of these states, which would have translated to like Trump plus 97 in a bunch of these areas. And they thought Kamala was dragging him down, but there was no way they could go with anyone else if she wanted to do it. We talked about this at the time. I had an interview on a podcast when I was at Freedom Fest, and she asked me who I thought would replace Biden, and I said it's Kamala, and she said no, it can't be Kamala. She's terrible. And I said it doesn't matter. If she wants to do it, they cannot deny her that spot by rule, by their own rules that they have set up. If she wants to do it, they have to give it to her.
She's the most marginalized.
I said the only way they can stop it from being Kamala is if they offered her something else that she would like in return for saying that she didn't want to seek the office, something like that, so they could put someone else in. But they didn't do that. She wanted to be the president. She wanted to run, and they had to give it to her. And so this race-based politics and ideology is one of the biggest reasons that this landslide just happened.
This hour of Free Talk Live is brought to you by Dash Digital Cash. Dash is the cryptocurrency designed to be used for spending. Tired of the ever-inflating US dollar? You can live your life on Dash instead with some handy websites. BitRefill.com has been accepting Dash for years and has a ton of big-name retailers and brands, including grocers, gas stations, phone refills, Amazon, and even prepaid MasterCards. Plus, many of their gift cards are available at a discount. But what about paying your bills? Spritz.finance can do that, and they can send dollars to your bank account in case you still need those for some reason. Dash is one of the oldest cryptocurrencies and is widely available on exchanges, including the decentralized Maya protocol, and in multi-crypto wallets. It's easy to get and use Dash. Start by learning more at Dash.org. Thanks to the Dash DAO for sending us 32 Dash per month to promote Dash on the air. Visit Dash.org to learn about Dash. Dash.org.
Should you be able to earn an honest living free from senseless government interference? The Institute for Justice thinks so. That's why we've spent years defending hard-working men and women from pointless government regulations. Nationwide, IJ has created opportunity by reducing government power, but there is still more work to be done. Visit our website today at ij.org. Let IJ take care of the government so you can take care of your business.
What if you want to hear the latest episode of Free Talk Live, but all you have is your phone, you forgot to download our archive, and you have no data connection? You can call our Listen line at 641-793-0191. That's a long-distance number, so you may incur charges. If not, listen as long as you want. 641-793-0191. The Free Talk Live Listen line, 641-793-0191.
The latest episode of Free Talk Live continues with Hour 2 up next after the news here at listen.freetalklive.com.
From Feature Story News in Washington, I'm Benji Haya. The United States insists Israel is not violating American law over the level of aid entering Gaza after outgoing President Joe Biden threatened to withhold some military support due to the humanitarian situation in the war-torn Palestinian territory. Israel has since approved a series of measures to boost the amount of aid flowing into the Gaza Strip, as Giles Gibson reports from Tel Aviv.
Among the measures approved by Israel's Security Cabinet are the expansion of a humanitarian zone in the south of Gaza, as well as an increase in the numbers of aid trucks being allowed to flow into the enclave. However, a group of international aid agencies, which includes Save the Children and Oxfam, has said that the Israeli government has not met the criteria set out by the US government last month. The Biden administration told Israel that it had 30 days to improve the humanitarian situation in Gaza or risk losing some security assistance.
President Biden met Israeli counterpart Isaac Herzog at the White House today, where he reaffirmed America's ironclad support for its Middle East ally. US President-elect Donald Trump has nominated former Governor Mike Huckabee for the role of ambassador to Israel and appointed Congressman Mike Waltz as his national security advisor. He's also considering Senator Marco Rubio as his Secretary of State. Nick Harper's in Washington.
Trump is lining up his loyalists for top jobs. Senator Marco Rubio has foreign policy experience. He's currently serving as vice chair of the Senate Intelligence Committee and sitting on the Foreign Relations Committee. And if South Dakota Governor Kristi Noem becomes Homeland Security Secretary, she would work with Tom Homan, the new border czar, to secure the US-Mexico border and enforce the mass deportation of illegal immigrants.
The world is on fire. That's the warning from the European Commissioner's pick to be the EU's next foreign affairs chief. Here's Will Denzilo in Brussels.
Addressing members of the European Parliament, Kaja Kallas said that if Washington's worried about China, it should also be worried about the response to Russia against Ukraine. The comments came in the wake of Donald Trump's election win and concerns in Europe that he'll focus his attention on China and away from Ukraine.
Another potential win down the line for Donald Trump, a judge delaying a key ruling on whether to set aside his criminal conviction. Sally Patterson's in New York with the details.
Donald Trump is still slated to be sentenced in his hush money trial at the end of this month. The former president was found guilty on 34 felony counts. That was for covering up payments made to porn star Stormy Daniels during the 2016 presidential election. The judge in this case now says he'll take another week to decide whether to throw out the case altogether. Trump's team says the case should be dismissed following a Supreme Court ruling on presidential immunity.
From bureaus worldwide, this is FSN.
With FSN Spotlight, I'm Simon Marks. Today, the future for Ukraine. Now Donald Trump is America's president-elect. It seems clear that a Trump administration will not continue to provide military assistance to Kyiv and may encourage President Volodymyr Zelensky to sit down for peace talks with the Russians that result in Crimea and parts of eastern Ukraine being ceded to Moscow. Bill Browder is a prominent critic of Vladimir Putin. He heads the Global Magnitsky Justice campaign and is worried about the portents of Trump's victory for Kyiv.
I'm extremely concerned. He has made it very clear that he's going to cut off military aid for Ukraine. Donald Trump Jr. was gloating on Twitter that Vladimir Zelensky's got 39 days left to get money from the United States. It's a very desperate situation because Ukraine gets about half of its military aid from the United States, and if the United States decides to stop that flow of money, then Ukraine won't be able to buy ammunition and other things to fend off the Russians. And it could lead to a catastrophic defeat in Ukraine if other things don't happen to shore up their defense in other ways.
One way might be for President Biden to give Ukraine clearance to use US-supplied weapons to their full effect, but that won't offset the dramatic shift that is coming in January. President-elect Trump reportedly told Vladimir Putin last week not to escalate the conflict.
Our top stories again. The United States insists Israel is not violating American law over the level of aid entering Gaza after outgoing President Joe Biden threatened to withhold some military support due to the humanitarian situation in the war-torn Palestinian territory. US President-elect Donald Trump has nominated former Governor Mike Huckabee for the role of ambassador to Israel and appointed Congressman Mike Waltz as his national security advisor. He's also considering Senator Marco Rubio as his Secretary of State. That's the latest feature story news. I'm Benji Hire in Washington.
It's the Onion Radio News. General Motors reports record sales of its new disposable car. This is Doyle Redland reporting. General Motors has announced a 56% increase in earnings this year, attributing much of it to February's wildly successful launch of the GMC Whim, the first ever non-refillable disposable automobile. Debuting at a cost of $1,100 each, the vehicles are flying out of showrooms as quickly as dealers can stock them. Whim enthusiast Glenn Shriver.
I recently consumed 4 vehicles driving from my home to Daytona Beach for the first annual Whim Owners Convention. I've already collected all 8 colors.
Rival automakers are preparing to counter with their own lines of disposable cars, including the Ford Temporare and the Chrysler Dumper. The 2002 Mitsubishi Ditch will be unveiled later this year with a projected sticker price of $799. Doyle Redland for the Onion Radio News, online at theonion.com.
You can help spread the ideas of liberty with our Patreon for just $5 per month at amps.freetalklive.com.
Free Talk Live. Speaking of this landslide, okay, fine, we'll mention it. It's a little weird. Does anyone in the group hanging out with us right now think that this is weird? That there seems to be way less votes this time around than 2024. Okay? Now, we've never been big stop the steal people. We always said, okay, show me the proof. It's possible. Anything is possible. But Joe Biden got 81 million votes, something like that, in 2020.
Even Trump's number is 74 million.
And Kamala's at 66, something like that. Now the obvious explainer for this is that if you want to just explain this away, we had COVID, everyone was sitting around, nothing to do, and they did a ton of mail-in ballots, stuff like that, made it way easier. You know, you didn't even have to work at that time or whatever, just people just had time to go do whatever they wanted, and so you got way bigger turnout. I can get some of that, but with the rhetoric and with the first female, you know, all that, with Biden being the person in 2020, all of that, with the $1 billion that Kamala raised and knocking on 100 trillion doors a week before the election, for there to be 15 million less votes.
Something just smells fishy.
It's weird. And let's look at the total vote number.
Now we'll get into what we really think on Conspiracy Monday next week.
Yeah, it's not Conspiracy Monday right now. It's White Pill Wednesday. Let me see here. What do we have as a total vote number right now? Let's get a quick number crunch on this.
138 million. 138.5 million.
Do you see that somewhere, or did you just make that up?
I'm doing the math.
You just did math right then?
Yeah.
Okay. 138 million?
Yep.
That's what you said?
138.7.
Let's look at, we got 138, and we've got, how big of it? Is there a big difference?
155.5.
Okay.
So 138.7, 155.5.
So that's 16 million difference, roughly. 16, 17 million.
That's a whole state.
I'm just...
A very large entire state was missing.
With more, I don't know, with all the rhetoric, with all the money.
Now, how many votes are still left to be counted? What percentage?
Yeah, there we go. So that's the one thing we got to look at.
What percent are we missing?
We've got 86% in Nevada.
What's California?
Yeah, California. So we have
Only
half of California. So we still have 8 million more votes probably in California, something like that. And so that takes care of half of that number. once all of California comes in. There's a good chance it's not going to be as big of a difference as what we're seeing right now. 63% in Arizona. And so that would equal somewhere around maybe 2 million more votes, 1.5. So we're looking at 9.5 still uncounted between those two states. I mean, I would say easily between all these states,
another 10 million votes coming in.
10, 12 million. So you might end up having 4 or 5 million less votes. So it is early, and that's the thing that we try to do here. You know, it is early to look at this chart and say, "Wow, look at that! There was definitely a stolen election. A bunch of fake votes were put in."
What's interesting is if Trump's votes are around 74, 75 million, and the Dems are around 72, 73 million, you can still question how Biden got 81 million.
That's a lot of votes. It's a lot of votes. It's no joke. I'm serious. I'm not joking.
It's pretty nuts. I mean, Trump increased his vote by looks like 11 million from 2016. And the Dems increased their vote by almost 20. About 17, 18 million votes.
So
that's it's still pretty crazy.
It's a lot. We'll see what the final numbers end up being. To wrap this up, one thing I want to say for libertarians, anyone who voted or anyone who voted for Trump or people who didn't or whatever, whoever's listening right now, you were made a bunch of promises this year by a Republican who had a chance of winning that in a way that has never happened before in my lifetime. I don't know if it's happened before that. I've never seen this happen. For him to come to the Libertarian Convention, to promise to free Ross Ulbricht and start talking about the income tax.
To actually sit down with the Libertarian Party chair.
Yeah. Have Elon Musk come out there and talk about cutting $2 trillion. Have Elon Musk talking to Ron Paul
on
saying
Twitter.
They wanted to work together. Say that they're going to end the Department of Education, all this stuff. You got made a lot of promises this year to a level that I've never seen before. And if I'm wrong about that, if it's never happened, or if it has happened in the past, let me know. But actual promises, a lot of very libertarian ideas and promises. He's got to hold up his end of the bargain. He's got to do some of those things, or at least make a very, very serious effort towards doing those things. He can pardon, if he doesn't pardon Ross, that's just that outright lie. He just decided not to do it. Mike Pompeo talked him out of it, something like that. Okay. So the other stuff, Department of Education, they can gut a lot probably on the executive level, but they could actually end it with an act of Congress if they get both sides in there. Cutting the $2 trillion, actually cutting that much would be very, very difficult without Congress voting to cut that money, which is very unlikely to actually happen.
Let me give you some hope for this, though, okay?
Mm-hmm.
We know from Trump's first 4 years, he cut a lot of regulations.
He did.
So
he spent a lot more money.
He did, but cutting, he's not a stranger to being able to cut those things. The other piece to that is I want to say we did overturn Roe versus Wade and send it back to the states. So for something like the Department of Education, Trump could run the same line and be like, look, we're going to send education back to the states.
Which is where it should be.
Yeah, where it's always been.
There's no reason for them to exist. So what I'm saying is I understand why you voted for Trump if you did, and I get why you didn't if you didn't. I was still going back and forth on it. I get it. If none of this stuff happens, if he just ignores all these things, that's it. I think the risk of being wrong as a libertarian voting for Trump is worth it to maybe get some of those things. But if they totally ignore all those things, every single bit of it, then that's it. But I think it was worth it to give that a shot this time. There were several things that they made promises on. If any of them happen, we will move towards net liberty in our lifetimes in a way we haven't seen. And so that's a pretty big deal. Be unprecedented move towards net liberty in our lifetimes. And I think that's worth it. But this is the one time I'm going to do this. Okay? This was my one time. So this was all a bunch of lies. Like, that's it. And every libertarian out there better make sure that they pay for it 4 years down the road by putting up a great right libertarian leaning candidate like Dave Smith, someone who will actually really threaten all those margins for them to really make them feel like, hey, you guys freaking lied about all this stuff. We're going to take you down. I think the risk was worth it this time because I didn't have someone I felt I could vote for, and neither did Charlie. And so I might as well take that risk.
And also, to me, at the very least, it at least sends a message to the liars and the gaslighters and the manipulators that, like, hey, truth is important.
Yeah.
We see what you're doing and we're not standing for it.
Mm-hmm.
That's, at the very least, there's that victory.
Mm-hmm.
And so, fine morning this morning.
It's a fine morning, isn't it? And you know what we're going to do? We're still going to call out every single thing Trump does that we don't like.
And I think there's fine people on both sides of this election.
They're all fine.
They really do.
Mm-hmm.
You know? But anyway, I was happy in the essence of my favorite part about it was the middle finger, as I just mentioned. That is, I have been critiquing Trump since he entered the race back in late 2015, early 2016. And I will continue to do so. But I'm happy in the essence of this election that we told the extreme woke left no more.
Yes.
And that's all I have to say about that.
And then we also need to work on winning them over at the same time, on convincing them why those things are wrong and what the better way is, you know, or they'll just come back with a vengeance. Got to do a good job messaging to those people. People can be changed. You know, I voted for John McCain in 2008. People can change. People on the left can change too. So don't just take this and say, oh, we won the war, everything's fine now. There's a lot of
work to do.
A lot of people to talk to out there who are maybe just going to be mad and be looking at ways they can get back. And you could have a reaction election, you know, to this. And so don't quit doing the work.
And you know, the
messaging.
whole Make America Great Again, you know when America was great? When it was freest.
Mm-hmm.
And so working our way to getting back to creating economically free people to make voluntary decisions without the government involved in every single aspect of your life is going to create the most prosperous nation.
Which we hope starts to happen in incremental steps. We have no promise of that yet, but we hope we move in that direction. All right, we got to go because I got to pee really bad.
Anyway.
Yeah.
Bang, bang!
That's it.
Bang, bang the drums.
That's that.
We didn't even talk about foreign policy at all. And
goodbye, democracy.
The fact that there is some hope that Trump could settle down, you know, world, basing off his first 4 years, he could maybe tamp down some of the potential World War III rhetoric.
I hope
things
so.
happening there. So.
I hope so. Yeah. I'm going to switch over real quick to Dumb Bleep of the Week, something we do every week on our daily podcast called Good Morning Liberty. You can go find Good Morning Liberty on your favorite podcast app. You can watch us on Spotify, YouTube, Rumble, and Odyssey. Of course, 1,406 episodes as of today. 1,406. Let's do Dumb Bleep of the Week. It is Dumb Bleep of the Week, election edition. And as you can probably imagine, there are a lot of things. There are so many things. In fact, if you follow along normally, I could not put numbers to them. I couldn't whittle the list down very far. If I were to put numbers on them, we'd probably have 30 submissions this week. And I found no way to separate them. They're each on their own, especially dumb. And so we're going to have to listen painfully to each one of these things after I go through a few of the screenshot versions of freakouts that I have. We'll have to listen to each one of these things and, painfully soak up the liberal tears, I guess, if we want to do that. I think we're just going to have to get going. If it's your first time listening, we normally whittled this down to about 10. We have everyone vote on them, and then we assign a winner. This week is going to be a little bit different. We'll have to see if we can come to some sort of group consensus, or just the whole thing is the winner of Dumb Bleep of the Week. Something like that. I don't know how to do it. But let's get going. Let's start talking about these things. I want to say number one, but it's not really number one. Here's the first thing right now. This comes from Victoria Brownworth. A lot of retweets, replies on this one. She says, there's one critical takeaway here. Kamala Harris was not the problem. She had great policy. She had strong values. She had a superb message. She had a stellar ground game. She had immense energy and compassion and love for America. Don't let anyone convince you otherwise. So just the takeaway, the one takeaway, it's very critical. The one critical takeaway is that this was not a Kamala Harris problem. And don't let anyone convince you otherwise. Yes, and as someone just said in the group, I am convinced otherwise. I don't think it would have been as easy for Trump to win. And we'll talk about this later. What if Michelle Obama was on the ticket instead of her? Oh, you got a black woman candidate. Do you guys think it would have gone just the same way? Just the exact same way? I think it would have been a little bit different, probably. Well, let's move on to the next. This kind of encapsulated the entire movement that the left was running on. And this is a meme that was going around. It's one of those little artistic drawings, a little thing like that. And it's a guy in the voting booth. His daughter standing behind him says, "Who are you voting for, Daddy?" And he looks back with a weird look on his face and says, "You." He's voting for you to have the right to kill your child because he didn't get you aborted or something like that. I'm not really sure. Yeah, his daughter's got like a massive Stanley Cup. I am actually very white-pilled that this movement did not win this week. Say what you will about the other side of the movement, and we'll talk plenty about things that we end up disagreeing on, but it almost an entire campaign, like 95% of a campaign built on abortion and built on lies, by the way. There was nothing she was going to be able to do about it. It would have been found either unconstitutional, or they would have had to get rid of the filibuster to push something through if they would have even won Congress, and they didn't even win Congress in the first place. There was nothing she could do about it. Likewise goes for the scare tactics around Trump doing a national abortion ban, which is something he said he was against. That would have to go through Congress, and then it would also have to survive the Supreme Court. So that probably wouldn't have worked either. But I'm glad that this part of this movement, which was like 95% of the movement from the people, I'm glad that lost. Nicole Hannah-Jones posted out, I say some of the tweets, she posted out like 7 or 8 tweets right here. She said, "We must not delude ourselves in this moment. Multiracial democracy in the U.S. is less than 60 years old. It's always been contested, often violently so. It's always been fragile since this nation's inception. Large swaths of white Americans, including white women, have claimed a belief in democracy while actually enforcing a white ethnocracy." Which is a thing, I guess. I don't know what that is. I'm sure she can tell me. "In the face of shifting demographics where white Americans will lose their numeric majority, we see a growing embrace of autocracy to keep the legitimate rulers of this country in power. History teaches us that we are in a perilous moment." Well, the moment's over. I mean, there's never going to be another election, and democracy is dead. So I'm not sure why we're worried about it. Continues, "It was naive to believe that if Kamala Harris avoided discussing her race and gender, that if she evaded so-called identity politics, that she would nullify the liability of being a black woman seeking the presidency in a country where racism and misogyny are embedded in the culture. This is a country that responded to multiracial electorate sending the first black president to the White House with a minority of the white vote by electing an openly white racist man over the person who could have become the nation's first woman president. And this is where I want to ask you the question again. Do you really think that if Michelle Obama was on a ticket and she actually went out there with real policies and ideas and stood behind them and made the case for them and went on long form podcast, doesn't have to be Rogan, but if she actually carried conversations for 1, 2, 3 hours at a time, if you had someone who had the ability to do that, it's not just a willingness to go say on Joe Rogan or whatever, it's the ability as well. And the fact that she wasn't willing, Kamala, came from the fact that she wasn't able to do it because she couldn't defend herself and she couldn't talk without a teleprompter. Kamala Harris is a historically disliked person because of who she is. It doesn't have to be because she is a woman or that she is black. She is terrible. We'll talk plenty about that. Don't worry. I'm going to skip over some of her stuff. Black Americans vote like they vote, not because they align with every single Democratic policy, but because they understand this country with a clarity that can be challenging for people who have not had to live under apartheid in the U.S., who've never known what it's like to not be able to cast a ballot. Are there a lot of black people voting in this country right now who know what it was like not to cast a ballot? What? I mean, the honest question, I don't know the year. What year did black people get the right to vote? There are a lot of people voted in this election who know what it's like to not be able to cast a ballot. Any of them? Are there any? It's got to be fairly old, right? I mean, talking like 100 years or more, whatever. Anyway, not to have rights of citizenship, not to be protected by this nation's laws. Anyone in the country is protected by the nation's laws. Unless you're a business owner and someone steals less than $1,000 worth of stuff from you. Black Americans know American fascism because they've lived under it. And that understanding overcomes any other policy choices they might otherwise vote on. Black people uniquely understand this nation and how awful it can get. That's why black people voted with Democrats. They still vote with Democrats most of the time. It's not what LBJ said, you know, that quote that goes around. AOC, this is a little bit before we got the results, but I had to include it. She said it's 70 degrees in New York in the first week of November. Please vote. And this has to, of all the things I've seen, I mean, this is just the plain dumbest when it comes to the climate hysteria. I mean, people talk about stuff every time there's a hurricane or a tornado or it's hot or whatever. But I've never seen it condensed in such small, stupid form before. It's wild to me. It's 70 in New York. Vote. My response was that Kamala Harris has had almost 4 years to fix this. Jokingly, that's a response there. But what is kind of funny is that 70 in New York is not even in the top 10 of the highest temperatures in New York City on that day in November. Thank you to whoever found this and posted it in the live group. That's where this came from. The hottest temperature on November 5th in New York City is in the year 1961. And then we have 2022, we had 2 degrees lower than that. It was 78, by the way, 1961, 76 in 2022. Then we have 74 in 1938, so 4 degrees hotter than what it is now. And that doesn't even take into account the what's called the urban heat island effect, but whatever. We'll talk about that some other time. Then you got several 73s in 1994, 75, 1935. You got 2005, 1959, 2015, 1940. All of those years had days that were hotter than 70 degrees. This one wasn't even in the top 10. Okay. I've never really seen it. Yeah, that's right, Sam. That wasn't real. It was a real global warming. It's just, now's global warming. Back then it was, it just happened to be hot, that's just what happens.
Tides are caused by the moon. The moon's gravitational pull also sucks up the feces and urine of the ocean floor, dumping it in the intertidal zones. The tide goes out, revealing pus-filled cysts known as tide pools, while the moon itself remains hypocritically pristine. Crabs are one of the many disgusting denizens of intertidal pools. They feed on feces and corpses with their demonic mouths. Scuttling hither and thither, they compete relentlessly for the juiciest excrement. Finding a walrus turd is truly nirvana for these abhorrent beasts. After accumulating too much filth to move, crabs bathe themselves in the ocean. Waste floods off the crab's exoskeleton and back into the tide pools as the cycle of begins anew.
This is the Onion News Network.
From Feature Story News in Washington, I'm Benji Haya. The United States insists Israel is not violating American law over the level of aid entering Gaza after outgoing President Joe Biden threatened to withhold some military support due to the humanitarian situation in the war-torn Palestinian territory. Israel has since approved a series of measures to boost the amount of aid flowing into the Gaza Strip, as Giles Gibson reports from Tel Aviv.
Among the measures approved by Israel's Security Cabinet are the expansion of a humanitarian zone in the south of Gaza, as well as an increase in the numbers of aid trucks being allowed to flow into the enclave. However, a group of international aid agencies, which includes Save the Children and Oxfam, has said that the Israeli government has not met the criteria set out by the US government last month. The Biden administration told Israel that it had 30 days to improve the humanitarian situation in Gaza or risk losing some security assistance.
President Biden met Israeli counterpart Isaac Herzog at the White House today, where he reaffirmed America's ironclad support for its Middle East ally. US President-elect Donald Trump has nominated former Governor Mike Huckabee for the role of ambassador to Israel and appointed Congressman Mike Waltz as his national security advisor. He's also considering Senator Marco Rubio as his Secretary of State. Nick Harper's in Washington.
Trump is lining up his loyalists for top jobs. Senator Marco Rubio has foreign policy experience. He's currently serving as vice chair of the Senate Intelligence Committee and sitting on the Foreign Relations Committee. And if South Dakota Governor Kristi Noem becomes Homeland Security Secretary, she would work with Tom Homan, the new border czar, to secure the US-Mexico border and enforce the mass deportation of illegal immigrants.
The world is on fire. That's the warning from the European Commissioner's pick to be the EU's next foreign affairs chief. Here's Will Denzilo in Brussels.
Addressing members of the European Parliament, Kaja Kallas said that if Washington's worried about China, it should also be worried about the response to Russia against Ukraine. The comments came in the wake of Donald Trump's election win and concerns in Europe that he'll focus his attention on China and away from Ukraine.
Another potential win down the line for Donald Trump, a judge delaying a key ruling on whether to set aside his criminal conviction. Sally Patterson's in New York with the details.
Donald Trump is still slated to be sentenced in his hush money trial at the end of this month. The former president was found guilty on 34 felony counts. That was for covering up payments made to porn star Stormy Daniels during the 2016 presidential election. The judge in this case now says he'll take another week to decide whether to throw out the case altogether. Trump's team says the case should be dismissed following a Supreme Court ruling on presidential immunity.
From bureaus worldwide, this is FSN.
Yep, we still do email. Drop your email address in the entry box at freetalklive.com, and you'll be kept in the loop with Free Talk Live.
We got some stuff from Reddit here. Maybe people showing their true colors or whatever. I think this one came from the live group as well. I don't spend a lot of time on Reddit, but I have seen screenshots of this going around quite a bit. One person says, with almost 8,000 upvotes on Reddit, I have a neighbor who's a huge MAGA fan. He is Mexican-American, and his two parents are here illegally and live with him. How would I go about reporting him and getting them deported? I'm in Florida. Anyone with MAGA family members or employees, report those individuals to ICE on Inauguration Day. That's the thing here. If they have illegal immigrant family members or employees, it's sad for the people, but the message needs to be shoved down their throats, cripple their hearts. their farms and their businesses. Okay. Let's see. This one says, I was inspired by another post I just saw. An ex-friend of mine is now very MAGA. We live in Texas, and she drove out of state to have an abortion about 11 months ago. I have an invoice and a copy of a medical leave of absence note she gave to her employer. How do I effectively report her? Yeah. Not really living out your values. You know, it's a little different to have like actual values and principles on something. But then when you see that someone's different politically, you go with this. That's sort of weird. And then the one on the right over here from Greg Hatfield, rainbow flag, American flag, Greg Hatfield. F Latinos and Arabs. There, I said it. Hope you all get deported and banned. All right, let's move on. Yeah, like Costco said, they scream tolerance 24/7, 365, as long as they agree with them. As long as they agree. It turns out if you don't agree, or if you care about other things, like the economy or whatever it is, could be different social issues or just whatever the reason is, you're gone. You're out of here. This person said, Democrats need their own propaganda machine. And I'm not even joking a little bit. A comment on here says 100. We need to stop pretending the voters care about statistics and ideals and get down to their level. So the fix is that the Democrats need a propaganda machine. I would recommend this person scroll through the news for the next 4 years and just actually, let's just put the news stations on a dartboard, and we'll close our eyes and we'll throw a dart, and whatever news station it hits, let's open that news station and let's see how they are covering politics. And we'll see if there's any propaganda machines out there. I think you guys know what I'm talking about, but Mark Romano, this guy doesn't know. He says, congratulations, media. It looks like you succeeded in getting Trump reelected. You made excuses for him. You refused to cover the crazy things he said and did. You sane-washed him at every turn. Looks like you got what you wanted. These people need help. You guys know, if you listen to this show every day, that I strongly disagree with that statement that just happened. I don't have to go all the way into it because we've got about 25 more things to go through. Shannon, poor Shannon, with 21 million views after 40,000 retweets on this, says, so I'm supposed to go to work and do my job tomorrow as if half the country didn't just vote to give me less rights than men? First off, Roe versus Wade, that happened in 2022. Okay, that happened, and there's not much else Trump is going to be able to do about it, even if he wants to. States' rights, Supreme Court ruled this. Plus, Congress is realizing probably that they just are teetering on this issue here and need to be careful. But also, less rights than men? Tell you what, I'm going to go ask for an abortion tomorrow and see if they'll give me one. We'll check and see. See if I still have that right while she does not. How about Ali Samarco? By the way, we're not even covering the Stop the Steal movement, which is gaining some traction on X right now. And by Stop the Steal, I mean the Democrat version of Stop the Steal, which is not making it really into the mainstream. There is a clip of Rachel Maddow going around a lot. And just to clarify, if Trump would have lost, we'd be dealing with a very big mainstream Stop the Steal movement right now. But there is one that's going that is getting millions and millions of views and thousands, tens of thousands of retweets every time they get posted talking about vote totals. But we're not even covering that this week. We're going to have to, we got to push that off to next week and see what happens. Ali Samarco says white men without college degrees are going to ruin this country. Someone responds and says, actually, they built the country. And she responds and says, no, slaves did. Slaves built this country. white men without college degrees are going to ruin this country. And I guess white women also are going to ruin the country. Basically, it's white people, and we'll show plenty of videos talking about this later on. This one I'm going to go back to. We're going to switch to some videos. This concerns the suicide. What do you call the groups on Reddit? I don't know what you call them. Subreddit. I don't know what they're called. I don't do Reddit. I've never figured it out. This is the Suicide Watch one, and it's dumb, and it's also sad and very dangerous, and we need to talk about how we got here, because no one should be considering suicide because of this. Let's get into some videos, though. This should be fun. We'll start with one of my favorites. Probably could have closed with it, but we've got so much stuff to go through, it doesn't matter, and that is Mr. Jimmy Kimmel getting choked up. He's getting choked up. This is, as I've said several times, one of my biggest motivations this year for wanting Trump to win was honestly for the people, for certain people to lose, to realize that what they were doing didn't work. And that might be an emotional, terrible way to think about things. But it happened. It did happen. And this is one of them. That's the point. Here's your 48 seconds of Jimmy Kimmel trying to not cry.
Let's be honest, it was a terrible night last night. It was a terrible night for women, for children, for the hundreds of thousands of hardworking immigrants who make this country go, for healthcare, for our climate, for science, for journalism, for justice, for free speech. It was a terrible night for poor people, for the middle class, for seniors who rely on Social Security, for our allies in Ukraine, for NATO, for the truth and democracy and decency. And it was a terrible night for everyone who voted against him. And guess what? It was a bad night for everyone who voted for him, too. You just don't realize it yet. And most of
all right, so there's that. He goes through a long list of people it was a terrible night for. That has yet to be seen. He even says that the people who voted for Trump, it was a terrible night for them, too. That we'll end up seeing. We're going to see what he does. We're going to see how the next 4 years go. He gets choked up, really, when it comes to immigrants. And then he kind of breaks down again when he talks about NATO and Ukraine. I don't think we're going to withdraw from NATO, by the way. Just a point on this. What happened with Trump and NATO, the guy does speak from negotiation all the time, okay? And this whole maybe we'll withdraw from NATO. You have to negotiate from that position when you're coming in and saying, you guys were all supposed to be putting in a specific percentage of your GDP, and you're actually underpaying. And we're overpaying towards this compared to all of you guys. And you know what? We might just drop out. And to me, that's a negotiation. Okay? I don't think Trump's going to get out of NATO. Would I like him to? I would like him to. I don't think he's going to. I think he will use words like that as a way to negotiate with these people. And as Jake said earlier, it is sad to see Jimmy Kimmel go from this, from the Man Show, which I used to watch a lot growing up. It's sad to see him go from the Man Show to this sad, pathetic shill for the bureaucracy, for whatever it is that he stands for, everything in the establishment that there could possibly be. It is really sad. It makes me want to go back and watch the Man Show, because it was a fun show. I don't know if any of you guys used to watch it, but it was pretty good stuff. How about let's see, AOC's got a minute here. She's talking about how we're about to see fascism. By the way, on this podcast, for years now, we've been saying our system of government closely resembles fascism already, and it has since the early 1900s. That's where, now you take out the nationalism or the racism and stuff like that. It's more, I guess, like a Mussolini fascism type thing where Not saying there was any nationalism or racism in that, but you get to have private property, but the government controls it. And we've sort of been in that system for a long time. And so what I get annoyed is the denial of that and acting like there's a unique threat from the right that doesn't exist from the left. And so let's go here. Yeah, Woodrow Wilson, totally agree. That's where I think it started. Even though we had some things like now it's slipping my mind. Antitrust. Yeah, sorry, antitrust. We had that before Woodrow Wilson, but I think he really started it. And of course, I mean, look what the things FDR did. My God. But anyway, now we're going to go towards fascism.
We are about to enter a political period that will have consequences for the rest of our lives. We cannot give up. We now find ourselves in a time in history that has precedent, and we find ourselves, I believe, in a time where there are, let's say, peers in history of mass movements of people that mobilize to protect one another in times of fascism and authoritarianism. And this is the era that we are poised to enter. Donald Trump has talked about turning the military on U.S. citizens that he deems his domestic political enemies. Authoritarians and people that he affiliates closely with and strongmen abroad in regimes like that, it is not uncommon to jail political dissidents or legislative opponents. This is the world that we very realistically may be entering.
So we might be entering a time where people jail political opponents. By the way, Donald Trump's sentencing is next week or the week after. I can't remember which one that is. New York is still pushing with that. Yeah, it's ignoring all. By the way, newsflash. Let me just go ahead and tell you what's going to happen. If Donald Trump governs like libertarians hope he does, like promise, it follows through on a few of the promises, a few of the things, they'll say that it's fascism happening. Like when he gets rid of the Department of Education, they're going to call that a dictatorship, authoritarian, fascist move. If he does that, you know, I'm not solid on that happening. If he does that, that'll be fascism. If he does any just normal stuff, just any kind of normal conservative stuff, they're not going to, if we don't get a bunch of political opponents jailed, if we still have an election in 2028, if he doesn't use the military on his enemies within, people who don't support him, they're not going to say, okay, I was wrong about the fascism. We were wrong about the authoritarian dictatorship. They're going to use every single little thing that's just like a normal ass Republican thing to do, or especially if he does any of the libertarian promises, if he cuts the bureaucratic state, the deep state, in 10% of the way that he has talked about doing, they're going to call it fascism. So just be ready for that. I'm warning you right now. And by the way, if a libertarian was in that position, they would also call it fascism every time they did something libertarian. Let's go to some media cope, and don't worry, I have a whole tab here full of freakouts from TikTok and Instagram and all that we will be closing with, so we will get to all of the freakouts. Let's see some of the, I'm going to skip over this one here. We got a couple things from The View if you can imagine. This is the if we could regulate social media. I got to do my due diligence and say this is a 15-second clip. It does not have any proposed community notes on it, which I'd be able to see. So no one has tried to community note this with 2.4 million views. But it's them saying that we should be able to regulate social media to fix this problem.
Think critically. Well, it would help if we could regulate social media, because one of the biggest offenders is D.C. and Congress have not been able to do one thing in regard to the rogue corporations of social media.
It's not going to get any better with Elon Musk now in the administration. I want.
All right, so there's that 15-second clip. What I mean by pointing out it's a 15-second clip is that I don't know what happened right afterwards. Maybe someone said, oh, no, we can't do that. That would be regulating free speech. And by the way, the Democrats got every benefit from social media they possibly could in 2020. And you guys weren't wanting to regulate them out of existence at that time or control what they were doing because they did everything they could to try and help Joe Biden win in 2020. And so this is super hypocritical. For all we know, that occurred right after this clip. But assuming it didn't occur right after this clip, then that's pretty dumb. Let's see. Any more media stuff? Here's Sunny Hostin right here. Let's see what she has to say.
We know now that he will have almost unfettered power. And so I worry, not about myself, actually. I don't worry about my station in life. I worry about the working class. I worry about my mother, a retired teacher. I worry about our elderly and their Social Security and their Medicare. I worry about my children's future, especially my daughter, who now has less rights than I have. And I remember my father telling me many, many years ago that I was the first person in his family to enjoy full civil rights. And now I have less civil rights than I had when he told me that.
Okay. All right. There we go. Fewer civil rights than when that was mentioned. She's worried about retired teachers also, by the way. That's something I'm worried about as well, because the teachers, when they retire, go on to a government pension program that promises people a lot of money they don't have, and they end up having to get bailed out. And maybe they should do a better job managing those pension funds. But if the market does really well, then they're going to end up doing better also. So that's something to consider. People on Social Security, like Jimmy Kimmel also mentioned earlier, Social Security's got until like 2030. We have to do something about it. There's no other option to not do something about it. That's pretty ridiculous. And he's going to have unfettered power, of course, which is what she started with. And this is really going to have to be our message to people. And we tried this. We tried, and I hope it sticks a little bit better this time than it did last time Trump was in power. The people on the left, if you're worried about the powers that Donald Trump has, then you should try to work towards taking away powers from the president and from the government in general. They do a lot of things that they should not do. And people on the right who are going to be totally fine for the next 4 years with the things that the government does need to remember that, for all you know, Gavin Newsom is going to take over those powers in 2028, or whoever, Michelle Obama, or whoever's going to end up running in 2028, not to start that speculation already. The same things you were fine with Trump doing 2016 to 2020, Joe Biden had those powers and then expanded on them. And so what I hope is that for the first time ever in the history of first time evers, a president gets in power and reduces the powers that the government has. Not going to hold my breath on that one, but that is definitely what should happen. So we'll see. It's not super typical that someone in power does things to reduce their power. I'm going to, what does Claire McCaskill have to say? Claire McCaskill, I believe, from Missouri? Is that where she's from? Let's hear what she has to say.
I mean, in that mission and that purpose, Claire McCaskill will determine. You okay?
I think I'm okay.
Tell me what you're thinking.
Well, I'm so proud. I'm so proud of her. I don't think people realize how hard it is to get to where she was. As a woman, getting elected DA, it's not easy, guys. People don't trust women to be in charge of making decisions about life and death and crime and being, frankly, a supervisor in some ways over police. Her fighting through the primary thicket of California politics to become Attorney General, really hard. I mean, this is really hard stuff. For her to be selected as vice president after what I think she would tell you was a very disappointing presidential race, where I think she kind of lost her footing and was listening too much to consultants, frankly, and it didn't really exude who she was. And then to be vice president and to step into the most difficult situation in the world, where she had to be completely loyal to Joe Biden and respectful of the fact that he had chosen her, but yet maneuver in a situation, I mean, such political skill. It is just inspiring. People who don't understand what she had to do to get to this moment. Mm-hmm. And so I'm just very proud of her.
Guys, I don't want to be mean or anything, but I honestly believe the only reason she made it to this point is because she's black and a woman. There are serious stories and allegations of the way that she made it to the top there in California. And then to make it to vice president, like that was some hard, massive feat for her. She got there because she is a black woman. And I mean, Joe Biden said he was going to pick a black woman. You know, so that list was whittled down quite a bit. And so I don't know if that was especially hard for her to get there. And then, you know, I don't like this complaining about being put in this position where she had to stick with Joe Biden. She could have had a way better shot if she would have broken from Joe Biden. If she would have had some of her own convictions, some of her own ideas and beliefs and values and ideals and all these things. She didn't have anything. She was an empty vessel. She was a chameleon, a shapeshifter, all of these things. She had several moments where she could have said, you know, when they asked her, is there anything you would have done differently? There's not one thing. Couldn't think of anything. Not at all. You couldn't even come out and say, well, you know, I think there's a lot of things. We did good things, but I think that we should have gone harder. We should have done it better. We should have done this. You know, we could have made it way better. And these are the ways I'm going to make it a lot better for people. She could not break from Joe Biden, one of the least popular presidents we've ever had. There's just no way for her to do that. That's on you guys. All right. And that's on her for not being a real person. You think Trump listens to his consultant class? His advisors and consultants that tell him exactly what to say all the time? No, I think a lot of times he's stepped in it because he doesn't pay attention to those things. For better or worse, he's just not someone who does that. And she could have done that. She could have been a real person with flaws and problems and not put up this fake facade and tried to pass it by everyone who could see right through it. She could have done that if she truly wanted to win. All right, we'll be back with more coming up real soon. Dumb Bleep of the Week, Liberty Night on the Free Talk Live Network.
My name is Angel Rach. I'm a mother of 2 teenage children, and I fought all the way to the Supreme Court for the right to use the medicine that saved my life. I've been permanently disabled for 10 years, with an inoperable brain tumor, wasting syndrome, and several other serious conditions. For 4 years, I was in a wheelchair, in so much pain, I couldn't even hug my kids. The hardest part was looking in their eyes and seeing how much they were suffering because of my medical condition. The medicine that gave me my life back and gave my kids their mom back was cannabis, also known as medical marijuana. With medical marijuana, I can walk, maintain my weight, and I can be a mom. Without it, my doctors believe that I would die. To learn more about medical marijuana, contact Marijuana Policy Project at 1-877-JOIN-MPP or on the web at mpp.org.
There are basically two types of advertising, direct response and branding. Radio's great for direct response with its low cost to listener ratio, but audio can't be beat for branding, which is a longer term endeavor. You want to be the first thing that someone thinks of when they think about your product or service. If you have a local business that you want kept top of mind in your community, call the station. If you need national reach, Free Talk Live's got around 200 radio stations, millions of monthly listening sessions, can suit all budgets, and if we don't think we're right for you, we'll tell you. Email me, mark@freetalklive.com.
Tired of cancel culture? Sick of mega tech corporations holding an axe over your head? Join the LRN.FM Matrix chat server. It's self-hosted, so no one else can tell us what to do or say. Don't like the existing channels? You can make your own. You can even connect into some of our channels from other Matrix servers. It's federated. For the full LRN.FM Matrix experience, though, you should join our server via the step-by-step instructions at chat.lrn.fm. Chat.lrn.fm.
The latest episode of Free Talk Live continues with Hour 3 up next after the news here at listen.freetalklive.com.
From Feature Story News in Washington, I'm Benji Haya. The United States insists Israel is not violating American law over the level of aid entering Gaza after outgoing President Joe Biden threatened to withhold some military support due to the humanitarian situation in the war-torn Palestinian territory. Israel has since approved a series of measures to boost the amount of aid flowing into the Gaza Strip, as Giles Gibson reports from Tel Aviv.
Among the measures approved by Israel's Security Cabinet are the expansion of a humanitarian zone in the south of Gaza, as well as an increase in the numbers of aid trucks being allowed to flow into the enclave. However, a group of international aid agencies, which includes Save the Children and Oxfam, has said that the Israeli government has not met the criteria set out by the US government last month. The Biden administration told Israel that it had 30 days to improve the humanitarian situation in Gaza or risk losing some security assistance.
President Biden met Israeli counterpart Isaac Herzog at the White House today, where he reaffirmed America's ironclad support for its Middle East ally. US President-elect Donald Trump has nominated former Governor Mike Huckabee for the role of ambassador to Israel and appointed Congressman Mike Waltz as his national security advisor. He's also considering Senator Marco Rubio as his Secretary of State. Nick Harper's in Washington.
Trump is lining up his loyalists for top jobs. Senator Marco Rubio has foreign policy experience. He's currently serving as vice chair of the Senate Intelligence Committee and sitting on the Foreign Relations Committee. And if South Dakota Governor Kristi Noem becomes Homeland Security Secretary, she would work with Tom Homan, the new border czar, to secure the US-Mexico border and enforce the mass deportation of illegal immigrants.
The world is on fire. That's the warning from the European Commissioner's pick to be the EU's next foreign affairs chief. Here's Will Denzilo in Brussels.
Addressing members of the European Parliament, Kaja Kallas said that if Washington's worried about China, it should also be worried about the response to Russia against Ukraine. The comments came in the wake of Donald Trump's election win and concerns in Europe that he'll focus his attention on China and away from Ukraine.
Another potential win down the line for Donald Trump, a judge delaying a key ruling on whether to set aside his criminal conviction. Sally Patterson's in New York with the details.
Donald Trump is still slated to be sentenced in his hush money trial at the end of this month. The former president was found guilty on 34 felony counts. That was for covering up payments made to porn star Stormy Daniels during the 2016 presidential election. The judge in this case now says he'll take another week to decide whether to throw out the case altogether. Trump's team says the case should be dismissed following a Supreme Court ruling on presidential immunity.
From bureaus worldwide, this is FSN.
With FSN Spotlight, I'm Simon Marks. Today, the future for Ukraine. Now Donald Trump is America's president-elect. It seems clear that a Trump administration will not continue to provide military assistance to Kyiv and may encourage President Volodymyr Zelensky to sit down for peace talks with the Russians that result in Crimea and parts of eastern Ukraine being ceded to Moscow. Bill Browder is a prominent critic of Vladimir Putin. He heads the Global Magnitsky Justice campaign and is worried about the portents of Trump's victory for Kyiv.
I'm extremely concerned. He has made it very clear that he's going to cut off military aid for Ukraine. Donald Trump Jr. was gloating on Twitter that Vladimir Zelensky's got 39 days left to get money from the United States. It's a very desperate situation because Ukraine gets about half of its military aid from the United States. And if the United States decides to stop that flow of money, then Ukraine won't be able to buy ammunition and other things to fend off the Russians. And it could lead to a catastrophic defeat in Ukraine if other things don't happen to shore up their defense in other ways.
One way might be for President Biden to give Ukraine clearance to use US-supplied weapons to their full effect, but that won't offset the dramatic shift that is coming in January. President-elect Trump reportedly told Vladimir Putin last week not to escalate the conflict.
Our top stories again. The United States insists Israel is not violating American law over the level of aid entering Gaza after outgoing President Joe Biden threatened to withhold some military support due to the humanitarian situation in the war-torn Palestinian territory. US President-elect Donald Trump has nominated former Governor Mike Huckabee for the role of ambassador to Israel and appointed Congressman Mike Waltz as his national security advisor. He's also considering Senator Marco Rubio as his Secretary of State. That's the latest feature story news. I'm Benji Hire in Washington.
Saying that he was giving his co-workers at Marley Publishing just a few more days to catch on to him, local mentally unstable man Michael Redding told reporters he planned on exhibiting 1 or 2 more warning signs this week before, quote, finally doing this.
I think I'll do just a couple of disconcerting things in front of people here at the office. Maybe give them a day or two to take action through the appropriate channels. But if that doesn't happen, then I'm going through with it.
The fully unhinged Redding, who plans on, quote, making this thing happen sometime next week, claims that despite displaying erratic and worrisome behavior around the office for the past few months, his actions have gone completely unreported by his coworkers.
I definitely talked about my frustration with life in general, and I even discussed my fascination with all sorts of violence. But that still didn't throw up any red flags. We'll see if anyone catches on.
Mike? I don't know him super well, but he's nice enough. He's quiet and he keeps to himself mostly, but I'm sure he'll come out of his shell. Just a matter of time.
This is the Onion News Network.
Got Telegram? You can follow our channel there and discuss show prep with other listeners at telegram.freetalklive.com. Free Talk Live.
Here's Juan Williams on Fox. I was lucky enough to catch this live that night when I went home. I left Fox on, and I caught this exchange. I might let it roll for a couple minutes because I was shocked they went here this quickly. I don't watch a lot of Juan Williams, but I was kind of shocked it went here this quick.
The size of this mandate, as you call it. I think that there's even recriminations now among Democrats as to Biden and whether Biden should have dropped out earlier or Biden should have stayed. Would a white male have done better? Obviously, Trump has defeated 2 women and now a black woman. So there's all of these questions. But to my mind, it seems to me incredible that a guy who led a insurrection against the United States government is essentially now, like a phoenix going back into the Oval Office. It's unbelievable.
Well, you have to consider the fact, Juan, that a lot of people didn't think that was an insurrection. They thought it was a riot, but not an insurrection. And had they thought it was an insurrection, I don't think he could have won.
Well, I don't know.
The exaggerations about that day.
Well, I'm not exaggerating.
About the alleged threat to democracy is a piece of what happened tonight.
Well, I don't think so. I think, again, I'm giving you my perspective.
Yeah. And I'm giving you mine.
Right. So I listened to you as my friend. But I'm going to tell you what I saw was not only a riot in terms of the violence, but a direct action intended to stop certification of a presidential election.
Understood. And we've talked a lot about it.
That's why I said that.
We've talked a lot about it. And the campaign,
very clearly. I'm not trying to hype anything.
The campaign ran a lot of ads about it, talked a lot about it, and more, half the country now, Juan, is going to say, that is not what I care about. I care about my economy. I care about immigration.
No, see, that's where we differ. I'm not sold on this idea that, it was the cost of eggs. I worry that it was, I'm not voting for this woman, or I'm not voting for this black woman.
I don't know. That's not what we see in our data.
Well, here's the thing. Where do you see that? Because a moment ago, Darren was actually...
All right, so we got that. He lists off... It's kind of funny how they can't... what I noticed a lot that night was that they couldn't get out of campaign mode and they still are trying to make the case for the Jan 6 thing and the insurrection thing and all the other stuff that there are. And they're still trying to make the case as if they're still in a campaign. And the thing about the insurrection, I say this every single time. We were live on January 6th. We had the news rolling. We were covering it as it happened. I thought it was stupid what people did. I didn't think it was beneficial or positive for anyone at all. And I think it gave the left a lot to work with. And there was nothing that was going to come out of it. You know, there was nothing. What were we going to do? I mean, there was no positive outcome of that happening. But it wasn't an attempted insurrection by Donald Trump. Like, you can separate those things out. And as we said numerous times, insurrection is a crime. There's a criminal code. Trump was charged with, is it 94 crimes? I think it's 94. He was convicted on 34 felonies. Still had a bunch of charges and stuff out there. Not a one of them was insurrection. Not one. And they kept running with this whole idea that it was an insurrection, even when, if there was any way you could legally make the case for insurrection, it would have been done. They finagled the legal system in a way to apply felonies to turn misdemeanors past the statute of limitations in the felonies. Someone would have found a way to charge him with insurrection. And by the way, insurrection, I believe, actually would have kept him from being able to run. But they didn't do that because they can't make the legal case for it, which means you should stop using it as an argument. And then he says, I don't believe that it was the price of eggs, even though that's, I mean, they got exit polls. The exit polls covered 23,000 people. It was the economy. That's what it was. And I don't know that Trump has any specific plans that are going to help the economy, except for getting, if he does do big things to hurt the regulatory state. I think that'll help a lot for sure. But it was the economy, and people ended up trusting Trump more than Harris on the economy. People experienced 21% cumulative inflation while Biden was in office. Some of that started by the CARES Act, gasoline thrown on the fire by the American Rescue Plan, and they were sick of it, and they were trying to get back to what their lives felt like when Trump was the president. And that was it. Charlie called it over a year ago that people were just going to want to go back to when the economy felt safe for people. And so, yes, that's why people voted. And now there's a nice scapegoat here that she's a black woman, which he ends up saying, like, I think that that's the problem. And that really sets up the next 4 years and all the claims of racism very nicely, by the way. You guys know we haven't had a race riot in 4 years. That's pretty crazy, right? Still had 50 unarmed black people killed by police over the last 4 years. I haven't had any riots at all. So that's interesting. But we're set back up for this racism narrative because Trump, first off, beat a white woman, and now he's beat a black woman, and the country's racist, and he's racist, and all that, and that's why they didn't vote for her. It wasn't any of her terrible policies that she had, or lack of policies, lack of convictions and values, or anything like that. That's all it was. So let's move on. We got more. We still had all the freakouts. I still have a whole tab of freakouts here. But let's have one more person tell us yet again that it was race and gender.
I'm surprised at the result,
Sunny Hostin.
But I'm not surprised. As a woman of color, I was so hopeful that a mixed race woman married to a Jewish guy could be elected president of this country. And I think that it had nothing to do with policy. I think this was a referendum of cultural resentment in this country.
Cultural resentment in this country. That's what Sunny says. I brought in this video from Justin Jones. If you don't know who Justin Jones is, he's a state rep from Tennessee. He is my state rep. He was, I originally wasn't going to go vote the first day I decided, okay, I'm actually going to take the time and go to the voting booth and vote, because I hadn't decided it was worth my time to do so yet, was when he sent something to my house telling me to go vote for him. And that day, I had to I decided I am going to go vote. I am going to go vote against this guy because he's crazy. He's one of the guys with the megaphone shutting down the Tennessee state legislature. If you guys remember the Tennessee 2 and the people getting expelled and all that kind of stuff. He's one of those guys. And of course, he's talking about fascism and racism in America. We have enough videos to go through. So let's talk about this girl who thinks that white women or people should wear bracelets to indicate that they didn't vote for Trump or that they voted for Kamala. He did not lose his race. He won it. He won it just fine. My district is, heavily left leaning. So there really wasn't any chance he was going to lose, unfortunately, but I did have to go register a vote against him. And before I ever thought about, I'm actually going to go vote for Trump, the day I was like, I'm not voting. I told my wife that day, I'm not voting this year. It's when I got the thing in the mailbox from him. I said, okay, I'm voting. And once I decided I was voting, then I made other decisions after that. This white lady. Wait, is her name Karen? It says Karen T. Is her name actually Karen? Now that's something.
Okay, so what I'm hearing is there's a blue bracelet that we need to wear because I want to make sure that nobody ever thinks that I am one of the apparently majority of white women who voted for Donald Trump. I do not want you ever to think that I was one of them. So, is there a particular bracelet? Do we just make it ourselves? Let me know. Send me a link. What do we do? Where do I get said bracelet, or am I just making it myself? Thank God I hadn't posted this yet. Is there a black woman-owned company that we can get these bracelets from? Because, honey, we owe them. We owe them big.
I hadn't seen that part.
Okay, so what I'm hearing...
I hadn't actually watched the whole video yet. That was my first time hearing her cut back in and ask if there was a black-owned business she could buy the bracelets from. That's fine, except anyone can wear the bracelets if you want. And also, God. I gotta get to the freakouts and then we'll give a final thing. Here's a black woman talking about how white women are the problem. Let's play that.
Make a few comments about last night. First of all, the result definitely was not what I wanted it to be. It is what it is. But I want to say something regarding the outcome. Black women, as we always do, stood by everybody. We always are on the side of right. And black men did the same thing. I mean, almost 80% stood with VP Harris. Almost 80% stood by what was right. The problem, once again, like it was in 2016, was white women. And while we all, myself included, thought Republican white women would go in and vote for what was right, Democratic white women clearly went in and voted for what was wrong. And this is not something that black women can fix. There aren't enough of us. There aren't enough of us to make this country do what is right. This is a white woman problem. Not all white women, but a majority of white women. They don't want to give up that white privilege. They don't want to give up what they see as proximity to power. And they sure didn't want to see a black woman ascend to the highest office in this country. Now, I said what I said. You don't have to agree with me.
All right, that's good. That's good, because I don't. What if you're wrong? What if black women don't always vote for what's right? What if they voted based on the fact that it was a black woman and didn't care anything about policies whatsoever? What if, and I'm sorry, excuse me if you'll pardon me, for some reason, statistically, black women seem to care way more about abortion as a percentage than white women do, because as a percentage, it is much higher, and that's what they were actually voting for. So, a lot of questions there, but you know what? My main response to this, because I did repost this video, was just keep doing this. You know? See how it works out for you. Let's just keep hearing narratives just like this. Let's have a racial reckoning. Let's just completely divide up the groups even more. It seems like it's working out really well. And, you know, for the other side. It's working out really well for the other side. And so let's just keep doing this idea and learn nothing whatsoever from this election. That's not too bad of an idea. How about we get to some of the crazy freakouts? There is a movement. Now this one is a marriage off the table. There's another movement of not having sex. And if you'll excuse my language, there's a movement of that as well, and I'm sure we'll get to some videos on that. But here's one: marriage is off the table, from this woman right here, which I'm sure she's fighting people off. So
this is all prank, right? Like we're just gonna wake up tomorrow morning and everything's gonna go back to the way it'll be a psych. It'll be like a really bad dream, and none of this will have ever happened, right? Like it'll be like the first time, and then we're all gonna pull through fine in 4 years. Correct? Please, someone tell me. I can tell you one thing right now, marriage is the farthest thing from on the table currently. So they screwed the pooch on that one if they thought that any of this was going to actually help with the whole family and kids department and lowering birth rates, because that, not even any semblance of thoughts I had or hope for that is completely going to be a no thanks for me, love. You think I would ever even dare bring a child into this country now? It was rough before. Now? No. That's cute. And the men, don't even get me started about dating. To think I was still entertaining a few moderates here and there sometimes. No, honey, no. Not even close. That's never goodbye.
You know, I think it's good for people to come out and say stuff like this. This idea, was it Bailey who just said in the group, like they literally don't get it. People, or Magoo said this, actually, women closing their legs is really going to own the pro-life crowd. It's impossible for that. They don't understand. No one's going to be super hurt if you decide not to marry anyone and decide not to have any kids. I'm sorry. They're just not. In fact, that could be a positive outcome for the rest of us. So keep that in mind. And if you're only going to be dating extreme leftists or whatever, that's fine. Marriage is off the table. Okay, whatever. I just think it's good that you put this out here in the open so people can make their own decisions. And I'm glad. I'm glad that some people are doing this. That's just an early freak out here. There is this lady who decided to assault a couple black people that were carrying Trump signs. This is from a body cam and then a newscast about it from ABC. And so we'll see from this old white woman who assaulted a couple black ladies who were holding Trump signs because they were black and holding Trump signs specifically.
I want to know why you're voting for Trump. That's the only reason I wanted to know. That's the only thing. And I said because you're brown skinned.
Gina Powell says she was on the receiving end of that. She told me she'd never seen the 82-year-old until she was in her face.
I was just shocked that just the presence of me, and she made it very clear it was my skin color.
Gina was with her friend Mary Jennings doing this, supporting Donald Trump, waving flags and signs, when she said the woman confronted her over her political beliefs and race.
And then that's when she shoved me, pushed me back, and I said, don't touch me. And then, not even a second, she just popped me right in my chin.
Here's how the woman arrested, who hasn't been charged, described it to police.
Was to push her away, and I put my hand to her chin.
And that's when Mary stepped in.
She punched me, but she connected, and, it slammed my jaw shut.
Both women are physically okay, but it's been an emotional toll.
Well, I haven't, wow, to start. I haven't been able to work yet. I'm still kind of in shock.
Edmonds police say they have established probable cause for a hate crime arrest.
All right, hate crime, I don't know about that. Don't believe in hate crimes. Should be the same kind of crime. Any kind of assault that occurs should be an assault, and it shouldn't matter what color the people are. This is a crazy old white lady who attacked these two people. I said that they were two black women. Let's just, that's unclear. Let's say that they were people of color. Because they were people of color, whatever specific race or ethnicity they were, and that they were supporting Trump. And this white lady thinks that she knows better than they do what is best for them, and ended up attacking them because they are people of color to fight racism. So there's that. This is a little compilation, a short compilation here from Brad Palumbo. I think we have a few freakouts in this one. I'm sorry about all the screaming and yelling and crying that's about to occur. But it did occur, and so we must watch it. And this is in response to a presidential election. I do agree that some of these are so crazy that they could be fake.
I'm sorry. No. Why? Why? Do you really hate me that bad?
Yikes. We'll talk about this here at the very end, but WTF. It's an election. There's a lady here. This is kind of funny. It takes this a 3-minute video. We won't watch the whole thing. I did think it was really funny. She's going to shave her head to make this big point, and she can't figure out how. But it says opting out 4B. Hey, can I ask someone in the group, because I'm not up with the trends, what does 4B stand for? I know the movement. I know what the movement is. Does 4B have a... South Korean movement? Is that true? I don't know. I don't know what 4B is really, but I've seen 4B a lot. I'm also not up on what that stands for specifically. So stick around while we figure out what this mythical 4B thing is. I think we're going to get it figured out. The live group is going to help me research this. We are smack dab in the middle of Dumb Bleep of the Week. We will be concluding that coming right up and getting to the votes to see who Dumb Bleep of the Week Election Edition winner is, who that winner is for this week, who had the dumbest reaction to the election of Donald J. Trump.
So the protection of life, liberty, and property is what the Free State Project is all about. But it's an effort to move 20,000 people who understand.
It's about demonstrating to the entire country
that, yeah, we can have a free market, a truly free market.
Making it just a freer, great place to live.
It's the world's largest voluntarist libertarian community, and it's only getting bigger.
That's amazing, to be able to move to a place where other people like passionately believe in being free and independent.
What the Free State Project is managing to do, though, is to put their money where their mouth is. It's physically getting up across the country and saying, let's go someplace and let's demonstrate the power of these ideas. There's a lot of kind of philosophy that surrounds liberty. There's a lot of thinking about it and talking about it. But here in New Hampshire, people are doing it.
101 Reasons Liberty Lives in New Hampshire, a documentary by Free State Project Early Movers. Watch it free at 101reasonsfilm.com. 101reasonsfilm.com.
From Feature Story News in Washington, I'm Benji Haya. The United States insists Israel is not violating American law over the level of aid entering Gaza after outgoing President Joe Biden threatened to withhold some military support due to the humanitarian situation in the war-torn Palestinian territory. Israel has since approved a series of measures to boost the amount of aid flowing into the Gaza Strip, as Giles Gibson reports from Tel Aviv.
Among the measures approved by Israel's Security Cabinet are the expansion of a humanitarian zone in the south of Gaza, as well as an increase in the numbers of aid trucks being allowed to flow into the enclave. However, a group of international aid agencies, which includes Save the Children and Oxfam, has said that the Israeli government has not met the criteria set out by the US government last month. The Biden administration told Israel that it had 30 days to improve the humanitarian situation in Gaza or risk losing some security assistance.
President Biden met Israeli counterpart Isaac Herzog at the White House today, where he reaffirmed America's ironclad support for its Middle East ally. US President-elect Donald Trump has nominated former Governor Mike Huckabee for the role of ambassador to Israel and appointed Congressman Mike Waltz as his national security advisor. He's also considering Senator Marco Rubio as his Secretary of State. Nick Harper's in Washington.
Trump is lining up his loyalists for top jobs. Senator Marco Rubio has foreign policy experience. He's currently serving as vice chair of the Senate Intelligence Committee and sitting on the Foreign Relations Committee. And if South Dakota Governor Kristi Noem becomes Homeland Security Secretary, she would work with Tom Homan, the new border czar, to secure the US-Mexico border and enforce the mass deportation of illegal immigrants.
The world is on fire. That's the warning from the European Commissioner's pick to be the EU's next foreign affairs chief. Here's Will Denzilo in Brussels.
Addressing members of the European Parliament, Kaja Kallas said that if Washington's worried about China, it should also be worried about the response to Russia against Ukraine. The comments came in the wake of Donald Trump's election win and concerns in Europe that he'll focus his attention on China and away from Ukraine.
Another potential win down the line for Donald Trump, a judge delaying a key ruling on whether to set aside his criminal conviction. Sally Patterson's in New York with the details.
Donald Trump is still slated to be sentenced in his hush money trial at the end of this month. The former president was found guilty on 34 felony counts. That was for covering up payments made to porn star Stormy Daniels during the 2016 presidential election. The judge in this case now says he'll take another week to decide whether to throw out the case altogether. Trump's team says the case should be dismissed following a Supreme Court ruling on presidential immunity.
From bureaus worldwide, this is FSN.
Our Matrix server is about as free as internet chat can be. Join the existing rooms or create your own at chat.freetalklive.com.
But here we go.
This is too skinny here. Yeah, I gotta cut it. There we go. Have I given up on America? Yeah. I've also given up on coloring this hair because, right? Coloring my hair, having my hair be long and luxurious, all that being skinny, being hot, and all the things that the patriarchy wants us to be, because clearly they don't give a shit about us. And I'm talking to you too, those of you ladies who have the internalized misogyny required to do what you did. Minorities who are so scared of a woman in power that you'd rather cozy up to the white man just in case some crumbs fall off his plate so that you may eat from them. Yes, scraps. I don't know how to work this thing, but I'm on my way. I'm gonna figure it out. Let's just do some cutting. You know why? Because this is taking too long. Here we go. Short hair we go. Here we go. Here we go. Here we go. We're cutting it off because you. That's why. You think I'm crazy? Me too. I'm crazy. Just like all the women before me who were crazy. So crazy. You know what? It's been a day. It's been a year. It's been 9 years, 8 years, whatever it may be. Around this time, 8 years ago, it's one of the worst times of my life. It's when my life fell apart. Not because of this. Don't get too excited. I'm just talking about regular life stuff I talk about on here. But
okay, so she couldn't figure out how to work the trimmer, so that's kind of hilarious to start off with. That's pretty good. She's doing this to hurt the patriarchy, I guess. And I don't know about you guys, all the guys out there watching right now, but I am sad. She really got me. She got me so bad. And I know you guys in the group are feeling it too. You feel the loss, right? Don't you feel that loss? I feel the loss of this girl's hair. It's different. When I woke up this morning, it was like this energy just gone that had been removed from my life. Let's move on. I have not watched this one. I saw it posted a couple times. It's got a 4B, 5B, 6B, 7, whatever.
I would go as far to say that I would purchase a Glock, and if you and I are walking on the same street and it's dark out and you're a white male, you have to be white for this to count, okay? If you're a white male, even if you don't approach me, I will shoot you. Yeah, I know. So, has to be on the street, you and I, has to be at nighttime. During the day, not so much, but at nighttime, okay? And you have to have very white skin.
That's got to be a troll, right? There's no way that's an actual leftist person posting her threat to kill white people. That needs to be a troll. But I know it's not a troll. This guy right here, who's also great, Mr. Leonard Serrato. Let's see what he has to say.
I'm done crying. My sadness is over. My anger has set in. I am a very petty person, and I am very proud of that. Love it about myself, actually. And so I say this in the most disrespectful way possible. I don't care if you are my family. I don't care if you're my friend. I don't care if we've been friends our entire lives. You can literally go f*** yourself if you voted for Donald Trump. If you are so sad about your groceries being expensive, get a better paying job. Do better in life. Get a education. Do something. Because you are stupid. And I hope you go jump off of a bridge.
Harsh. Thank you, Clark. That was my favorite part of this video. Before that, it's just really a normal freak out that a lot of people are going through. By the way, Charlie has family members that have actually blocked his number. Maybe we'll talk about that later. But if you're so worried about the price of groceries, just go get a better job. Are you kidding me? Is that what we move? People who were worried about the economy and their ability to pay for goods. You're worried about your position in life and you can't afford groceries and rent and all of these things. The answer from this lefty guy is go get a better job. Are you kidding me? What? What is happening? I hope this self-destruction is learn the code, stop being poor. It's so good. Okay, we've got a clip here from the, is this the Daily Show when it's not with Jon Stewart? I don't know who this is. I need someone to send me a funny female comedian. I agree with you that they probably exist. But what's extra bad about this is she's trying to be real and say things that sound like they're off the cuff. You can tell she's reading from her teleprompter, which I assume is why she liked Kamala Harris so much. But it's so fake and disingenuous and also terrible, and the timing is horrible, and whoever wrote it sucks. But here is her freak out.
I slept 2 hours last night and I feel like, but here we are. Let's get right into it with Indecision 2024. Decision edition. Is it too late to undecide? Well, if you're just joining me in this waking nightmare, yesterday was Election Day. We were all hoping it would make history, and boy, did it ever.
Mr. Trump made history last night. He will be the first convicted felon to be president of the United States.
America's elected its first criminal president before electing its first female president. What a day for proud felonists. What the actual America? We have had 2 qualified, accomplished women nominated for president, and both times they lost to the worst man in the whole country. It's starting to feel like we're going to get every other first before we get a first woman president.
All right, I'm not going to go any further into this. No point in doing that. There are a couple stupid points she made, and like a couple people in the group have pointed out. And someone who's been good on this has been Nina Turner, who, used to make Dumb Bleep of the Week all the time. She's been good on this. She's been saying to stop using the convicted felon thing against Donald Trump because she fights for convicted felons to have the same rights as anyone else, which is a fairly libertarian thing to do, especially when it's trumped up charges, if you want to use that term. And so that's a really stupid point to make for people. 2 qualified female candidates, 2 very good qualified female candidates, and they were both beaten by Donald Trump. And, I guess we're supposed to excuse all the terrible, terrible, awful things about Hillary Clinton. And, I don't want to do that, but women can do that if they would like to do that because she's a woman or because she has some of the same beliefs as them. And then Kamala Harris, who I guess technically qualified given the fact she's vice president right now, but she only got that job because she is a black woman. And so doesn't make her super qualified. And I see some links coming in through the group here with some funny female comedians, and I'm gonna watch them because I need to hear them. I need it for my opinions on things. I need to actually hear this. We've gone like an hour and 15 minutes now. There's a 15-second video. Costco put this one in earlier. Now, I do have to preface this. This has been reposted by the Midas Touch channel, another channel that I'm just glad that they lost, like what they wanted to happen lost. Same thing with Kamala HQ and the Lincoln Project and all these people. Like, I'm so glad that they put everything they had into this, every resource at their disposal they put into this, and they lost. And the Midas Touch channel is one of those that I'm very, very happy that they lost. Reason I point out that it was posted by them is that this video actually came out in 2022 after the Roe versus Wade ruling. This is not something they just made because of this election, but it's 15 seconds and it goes through the leaders, these leaders of Belgium, Finland, and what's the third country that they go through? Maybe, I guess we'll figure it out when we watch the video. And it's talking about Norway. That's the other one. Thank you. And it's saying, "Dear American sisters, we stand with you." And each one of them, it's these different leaders from these countries. And then we'll talk about what's so dumb about it and what's so disingenuous and fake about what this entire election was built on. And so here's this video. It says, "Dear American sisters," and it's all these women standing in a V. The Belgian people are with you. You're not alone. American sisters, the Norway Parliament stands with you. American sisters, you're not alone. The Finnish Parliament stands with you. And that's it. And so that's great. Except for, why don't we do this? Why don't we do this? Why don't we just enact the abortion restrictions from those countries, since those people stand with the very sad and the very sad women of America who have no rights left. What I think we should do is let's just give in. Let's adopt the abortion policies of those countries, because one of them has a 12-week ban, one of them has an 11-week ban, and one of them has a 14-week ban. And the case that overturned, the Dobbs case that overturned Roe versus Wade, was a 16-week ban on abortion. And they ruled that they could do that. But the three countries who stand with the American sisters, who are not alone, have abortion restrictions that if Donald Trump were to try to put them in place, or the American Congress were to put them in place, they would all think is just pure Hitlerian fascism. If it were to happen, like, they're standing with them, but the people they're talking to would never accept those restrictions that those people have in their countries. And that's just how fake this entire movement is. Like a bunch of the countries in Europe have restrictions set around 12 to 16 to 18 weeks. And it was a 16-week ban, the Dobbs decision, that overturned Roe versus Wade. And that's just how far they want absolutely no restrictions whatsoever. We can talk about whether or not there should be some, whether it should be at viability or whatever, but these aren't countries with 30-week restrictions or whatever it is. They would be considered very restrictive by the people in this country, except for that they're doing this little virtue signal TikTok thing where they're saying that they stand with you. And you would never accept the laws that they have in their country. Not really. You would have to, but you wouldn't really accept them. That brings me to the last thing I wanted to talk about here, which is the Suicide Watch page on Reddit. Now, this could be people just posting things to try and be crazy, of course. But I also believe there are people who feel this way as well. This person said, "It's decided I will be killing myself before I'm 20. This fascist country will be the cause of it. I fear for my future, not only as a queer person who already has to keep my identity in the closet, but as an autistic, neurodivergent individual as well. They will stigmatize people like us even more." Yeah, I'm sure Elon Musk is going to get right on that. "If I cannot legally be defined as human under this Trump dictatorship, then I choose not to live at all. I've been suicidal for so long, and really the one thing that I was hopeful for this year was people taking a stand against this deranged fascist. Now it's too late. I voted. I tried. The people who let this happen are the single most repulsive group of people I've ever seen, and I would rather die than watch them make the decisions for the next 4 years. If we even have elections at that point, this is the precursor to when I finally say goodbye. I'm sorry." This person says, "This world is hell. I'm done. I'm not living through this. The world isn't worth living. I had some amount of hope people would make the only rational choice for this election, and they didn't. So many people will die. So many people will suffer, all because people have voted for an effing fascist. I don't want to live in a fascist country. I'm not effing doing it. I'm not watching the people I love die. I'm not watching innocent people suffer at the hands of these effing monsters. Let's see. No reason to live anymore. No hope for a better future. Things will only get worse. It's impossible for anything to ever improve. All life is just watching shit get worse and worse and worse, never improving. So on, so on, so on. So, I don't want either one of those people to kill themselves. And the dumb is not for them. You have been lied to. You have paid too much attention to what the media has been telling you so they could get clicks and so they could get one specific person elected. It's my belief they wanted to get that one specific person elected because that person was just going to be a puppet for the people who are actually running this country right now. And that sounds crazy, but I don't think Joe Biden's actually running the country right now. I think it's a bunch of bureaucrats, and those bureaucrats were running for re-election. And all this talk about fascism and Hitler and all that stuff were based on out-of-context clips and things that were just purely made up. And I do feel sorry for people who actually took this so seriously that they would be suicidal, or some of the people who are legitimately screaming and crying in some of these videos, if they are legitimate. Well, we can laugh at them and all that. I don't want to laugh at anyone who's saying they're going to kill themselves, but they've been lied to. And so the dumb right here goes to the media that has just blatantly, unabashedly lied to people over and over again so they could try and push this into one single outcome. They went so far with the rhetoric in this election cycle that people are actually saying life isn't worth living anymore, assuming these things are all true. These do sound legitimate. And that's on them. That's on the people in the media. Now it's also on people to be able to see through things. But there are a lot of vulnerable people who take all this stuff seriously and have a tough time in their lives and get sucked into one specific ecosystem on social media and all that, and they take all these things very seriously. So the media for doing this to people, and the people on social media, and all the hyperbole and all the lies, where we couldn't just talk about actual policies. We couldn't have a legitimate debate. The biggest debate over this should have been about whether or not we wanted to have price controls and price gouging, or if we wanted to have tariffs, because those were the most substantial things we were talking about, or whether or not we wanted to try and end the Ukraine war through some kind of a peace deal, or if we wanted to just keep funding it and wait and see what happens, or if we wanted to broker some kind of a peace deal in the Middle East. Like, those are the conversations that the media should have been pushing this entire time, because those were the actual only substantive issues of this election. Everything else was made up, and they have screwed up a lot of people's lives. And it's downright disgusting what they were able to do to some people. And that's why I wanted them to lose so bad. I actually think it's very important for the country and for the future that those people saw that was a losing thing to do. And where do we go from here even? How do you have worse hyperbole than what we had in this election cycle? What do you do? They sold out on this. They thought it was going to work. They totally sold out. They planned on Kamala winning and saying, see, look, we prevented Hitler. Look how bad it would have been if Trump came in the office. They totally sold out on that, thought it was going to work. But what do they do next time around? Because there will be a next time. There will be another election. If I'm wrong about that, it doesn't matter. We probably won't have a show anymore. But there will be another election, and they're going to have to tell everyone again. They're either going to say, well, this guy's Hitler, or this girl's Hitler, whoever it is. They're Hitler. Can't you tell? They're going to do this, this, and this. Oh, they didn't do it in the last 4 years, but they're going to do it this time, and this will be the last election you've ever seen. And they're going to do it again. Or we'll actually have to talk about the real issues of the campaign and what the actual policies of these people are. And that's what I hope we actually move towards after this election. Because all this stuff is freaking toxic for everyone. And they shouldn't get away with doing it. I have no clue how to do the voting for this week. I don't even know what to vote on. I don't even know what the numbers are. Did anyone in the group see something that was specifically dumb that stood out from the other things? We got media as a submission, liberal media in general. That can be number one right there, liberal media. Jake, I think he said he was dropping out. His vote was for Juan Williams, I believe. So we have Juan. I think that's how you would wait. That's not it. One of those is right. Everything is dumb. We've got, the 4B movement as well. We got the lady who cut her hair. We got the liberal media in general. Juan Williams. You can kind of see those submissions through there if you're hanging out in the chat right now and giving some thumbs up. And you can vote. You can vote on what people have thrown in as names for the submissions right now. So you can kind of see them up above and throw in some thumbs up on those things. A little bit different than we normally do, for sure. That was way too difficult to organize into numbers this week. Just couldn't do it. While people are going up through this list and they're voting, I'll tell you guys, join the Fed Haters Club. Coming up here soon, we're going to be doing a thing at least once a week where we open up the last 15 minutes of the show for people to request to speak, like you're on a Twitter space or something like that. And so you can join, you can request to speak, and we'll try and get through all the people that want to speak if they want to. And so you can do that in the Fed Haters Club. You can join that by going to joingml.com. You can hang out with all the fine people in the Fed Haters Club. Okay? That is where all the cool kids are. Totally right about that. And it's a growing group. Got a nice little core group of people who hang out with us for every show. Been hanging out with them for a long time. And it's $7 a month, okay? That's, think of all the things that you spend $7 on in a month. One of those $7 could help us continue doing this show forever. If you just come and join. And there's other tiers as well. If you want to be a real libertarian, you can do that. You can make yourself a real libertarian, lifetime membership, okay, which is actually a really, really good deal considering we've been doing this for like 5 years, and you break that out in $7 a month. The real libertarian tier is a really good deal if you plan on hanging around for a long time. So let's go up through here, see what the heck these votes are. Of course, we got a bunch of random messages through here, so I kind of got to go scroll through them. What is it that actually ended up winning? If anyone else wants to throw a vote in, way less votes than people hanging out right now. It is in the actual message, not the Dumb Bleep of the Week voting channel, by the way. Oh, wait. Did someone throw it in on Dumb Bleep of the Week vote? Let me see. Sorry, if you're listening right now, it sounds very disorganized, and that's in fact because it is. Okay, everything is dumb. Let me go to the actual message back here. Let's see. It's a mess. It's a mess. It looks like 4B is winning, the 4B movement. Whatever those 4Bs are, all the Bs supporting the 4B movement, that is who wins Dumb Bleep of the Week this year. Yeah, that's who wins. Oh, those are the 4Bs right there. We've got 4 no's. Why B? Why is it? Oh, okay, they're Bs. Okay. Is that South Korea? Is that where the movement's actually from? Yep, okay. So we've got no sex with men. That sounds specific. No giving birth. No dating men. And no marriage with men. That's what 4B is. If that's what it takes, then that's what it takes. Let's try it out and see what happens. I'm fine with that. That's Dumb Bleep of the Week right here on Liberty at Night on the Free Talk Live Network. Remember, you can find our daily podcast, Good Morning Liberty, on your favorite podcast app, 1,406 episodes. If you don't do that, you'll still hear from us again next Tuesday night. See you then.
If you're looking for work, it's a process of elimination, and you're trying not to be eliminated. So here's a tip for making the cut, and this might seem subtle, but to the person interviewing you, it's not. There is a world of difference between applicants who convey, "I need a job," and those who simply ooze, "I want to work," especially in these lean times when many you're competing with will seem desperate in "I'll take anything" mode. If you convey specific interest in this job